Chapter 21. Coming with evil intent. The early morning mist had dispersed as the golden sun stretched its rounded body and leapt over to the east horizon, emitting countless golden lights, shining over all myriad things in the heavens and on earth. Little she, see you tomorrow. After continuously practicing the 3 strikes of the flying sky swallow sword arts for more than 100 times, Yunshi couldn't even move his fingers anymore as he collapsed to the ground. Hua cheerfully waved goodbye to him and ran all the way back to the town. Shortly after, the only one remaining at the riverbank was a weak youth that had suffered torment from his childhood sweetheart. He looked at Maya dispiritedly, seemingly like a teenager who lived his life without love, while the golden retriever puppy was licking the juvenile's cheek. Hua is really too strong, I have clearly said. I don't want it. Completely exhausted and nearly experiencing an out-of-body experience, Yunshi's hands and feet assumed a posture like a big sign. He didn't even have the strength to pick himself up. Practicing sword arts with Hua, a first rank against a third rank, he really courted his own death. Presumably, in Hua eyes, even if there were 100 Yunxi's, it would only take a few sword brushes to beat them. The fact that she can be this patient and spend great efforts in helping an opponent whom she could instantly kill, practicing sword skills with, was completely because they had a relationship as childhood sweethearts. Maya, am I too weak? He was barely able to stretch out his hand to look at the vibrant sun from between his fingers. Yunshi felt like he was a fish on a chopping block which suffered serious dehydration and would soon be hung up. Woof. Maya looked around to confirm that nobody was here and ran all the way to Yunshi's side to hold her small paw to his forehead. At the next moment, a golden brilliance emitted from Maya's paw and slowly seeped into the Yunshi's body, making it warm. This was vitality power. Yunshi easily recognized the kind of energy that was being injected into his body. The golden fairy brought blessing and luck, the golden fur princess. Maya actually had it, far more than this. At present, just because Yunshi was too weak and couldn't obtain more star force, he couldn't even say anything. Sigh. Cough. Thank you. After getting Maya's treatment, Yunshi suddenly felt that more than half of his physical strength had been restored. Especially because of the continuous display of the flying sky swallow's 3 consecutive strikes, it made his hands unceasingly twitch, as well as almost causing him to completely lose his senses to move and control his feet. The greater part of it now was cured by the golden light. Although it was still quite far from his peak condition, but at least he was not in a salted fish-like state. ***bang. When Yunshi was about to get up, a figure with a pale complexion slowly came out from the direction near the woods. He looked like a drunkard with a deathly pale complexion. He had long messy hair and was clad in deep violet clothes embroidered with the yin-yang symbols and the 8 diagrams pattern on his chest. He had been attentively watching Yunshi practice swords with Hua and looked at the flirting eyes between them the entire morning. He was finally unable to bear it any longer and showed himself. Ashen. Yunshi knew this youth. It could be said that the whole town knew him. He was the town's second genius, the Mayor family's young master. Had it not been for the beyond common sense super genius Hua then, he would have been regarded as the first genius in this small town. 3 years ago, he had passed the examination to the Celestial Palace and went to the Sword Blade region, which caused quite a big disturbance in this small town. After all, in this town, a person who had double talent like him was very rare. He was at the same time a swordsman and a Taoist priest. Although his swordsman and priest rank was only at the first rank, considering he was just 16 years old and could step in both areas, it made him this small town's first genius in the century. It was similar when Hua, who was a 16-year-old genius, was able to break the limit of the mortal grade. However, since she was not a native of this small town, Ashen, as the mayor's son, became the benchmark and the representative for the genius standard in this small town. However, in the end, he didn't choose the Sword Palace in the Sword God domain, of which almost all young geniuses would choose. Rather, he went to another big power instead that specialized in all kinds of Taoism techniques, the Celestial Palace. At that time, because of this choice, he seemed to have a big fight with his father. Yes, it is me, Yunshi. Ashen fiercely stared at Yunshi with a hateful and cynical expression that carried along with it a malicious intent that would make people shudder. 3 years, I finally came back. I've come back to marry the bride who I love. Your bride? She somewhat felt some kind of bad premonition. He recalled that for a period of time, before Hua had yet to show her otherworldly talent and shock everyone, Shun and Hua were once called by this small town's inhabitants as the twin stars. For such an ordinary small town, to be able to step into this grade at this age was worthy enough to be great geniuses that should be recorded in the book. 3 years ago, when Shun admitted himself to the Celestial Palace, countless people's hopes were entrusted to him. Even the mayor who had a big fight with him finally forgave his son. The Celestial Palace was after all a colossus that had stood aloof in the Eastern God domain for thousands of years and had a legend-rank powerhouse that surpassed the 6th rank in command, just like the Sword Palace. Looking at the scope of power globally, the Celestial Palace, which specialized in Taoist techniques and the heavenly laws, were on par with the Sword Palace, which specialized in the sword arts. But in the Sword God domain, the Celestial Palace's reputation and power could not be compared with the Sword Palace. Whether it was the Sword Palace or the Celestial Palace, as long as one was accepted, in this small town, it was like a carp fish that leapt over the Dragon Gate. Why would it be you? Hua's vision is a bit too bad. After 3 years, Shun, who just returned from the Celestial Palace, stared tightly at Shi with bloodshot eyes. A trivial baker boy, what qualifications do you have to be together with Hua? Hua and I are destined by the heaven and earth to be a perfect match. Sure enough, now Shi knew from where that chilly feeling behind his back came from. Shun, despite being hailed as this small town's second genius, had always been narrow-minded and was not a likable character. Everyone just looked at his father, the mayor's face, to then give him way. Regarding his conceited and arrogant attitude due to his achievements, they had always felt indignant but didn't dare to speak out. Only Hua, who moved to this small town later, never gave him any face and even beat him many times to teach him a lesson. Who would have thought that this treatment unexpectedly sparked Shun's interest in Hua before he took the test to get admitted to the Celestial Palace? Not the slightest opportunity was left out when he tried to pester Hua. Although the results had always been a downright tragedy. Only, Hua disregarded him and didn't care whether he was the mayor's son or not. This small town's genius of the century beat him unmistakably to let him reflect on himself. This situation continued until Shun was finally admitted to the Celestial Palace and only ended after he left this small town. Unexpectedly, 3 years later, Shun came back, and it seems that he hadn't given up on Hua. 3 years ago, I knew that Hua would be the most dazzling star and I would never be her opponent if we were to compare sword arts talent. So I chose the Celestial Palace in order to obtain Hua's heart with my strength. Now, I'll make you know what real strength is. With bloodshot eyes, Shun stretched out his fingers and blew a whistle. Asterisk boom. Asterisk boom. Asterisk. From the other side of the river, a huge monster with a forest-like skin color marched with strength and speed that could make people tremble. Along with it came a gushing and suffocating pressure. Chapter 22. To kill rough and lumpy green skin, higher than 2 Yunshis together, even its legs were higher than Yunshis. In addition to its swinging small tail, it had 4 gleamingly sharp teeth when it opened its mouth. The green hippo. Yunshi finally understood what the monster that made him die again and again in the rookie trial was, and where that monster came from. At first, he wondered how it even possible to have a 3rd-rank green hippo monster around the town, since even a fox was rare to be seen here. So it was Ashen who brought it here. Ah, you see it? This is my strongest power, what I got from the Celestial Palace. The 1st-ranked killer among all 3rd-rank creatures, homicidal hippo. It is the strongest monster a 2nd rank like me can control. After seeing Yunshi's surprised expression, Ashen couldn't help but laugh. He looked at Yunshi as if he was looking at a dead man. You can't see tomorrow's sun. I don't think so. I have an appointment tomorrow with Hua, in order to practice my sword skills. Ashen, I'm sorry, but I will let you down. More or less, Ashen had reached the 2nd rank, and that was a little beyond Yunshi's expectation. Regardless of his obnoxious character, not too many people could become a 2nd-rank Daoist priest at the age of 19. The 3rd-rank hippo did have terrible combat power. Yunshi had learned it from his 120 deaths. Kill him, Hippo, Ashen said as he had lost his mind. He just came back and hadn't yet told everyone in the town that he was already a second-rank Daoist priest. He wanted to enjoy the jealous eyes of the villagers, but instead witnessed Yunshi and Hua were practicing the sword together. He thought he could bear it if they just practiced the sword, but what was that? They were making eyes at each other. Hua was suppressing her strength, playing with Yunshi. Everything was Yunshi's fault. He was just a bread shop assistant. How dare he think that he was worthy of practicing together with the real sword genius, Hua. In the whole town, he was the only one who could match up with Hua. Because he was the disciple of the Celestial Palace, who mastered a third-rank Hippo as a talented second-rank Daoist priest. Who could understand what he paid in order to dominate the cruel Hippo? He rolled in the mud with the Hippo all day. He even slept together with it. He held the brush and helped the Hippo brush its body every day. Ate meat together with the Hippo, even. It took a year before he got in contact with the terrifying homicide Hippo and tamed the ferocious monster, which made other disciples so jealous. The only reason that helped him do such a ridiculous thing, which he didn't even think of in the past, was that he wanted to come back to marry Hua. Hua is mine. You can never have her, he said with jealousy and madness. A voice whispered in his heart that if he didn't kill Yunshi here, he would live in regret all his life, not to mention marry Hua. So, Yunshi must die. Ashen, you have changed. Yunshi adjusted his breathing. If it was some other third-rank monster, maybe it would be a big trouble. However, that wasn't including this green Hippo. He had fought against it in the trial 121 times. I have not changed. Hua is the only girl in my heart. But you beast. From childhood, you were always popular among girls. You piss me off. Which part of me is no match for you? I'm stronger than you, more talented, have more money, and am more handsome than you. Why are you her only childhood sweetheart? I want to be her childhood sweetheart too. Bloody tears were almost welling up from Ashen's eyes. He was the son of the mayor. He was the first to meet with Hua. Everything was first. At first, when Hua moved to the town, the mayor, in other words, his father, purposely brought him to see Hua. He repeatedly urged him 1,000 times to get along well with the little girl, Hua. At that time, he had vaguely realized that Hua's family was unusual because he had never seen such a flattering look on his vulgar father's face. However, the first moment he saw Hua, it wasn't important anymore. He didn't need his father to urge him. He had been attracted by the impassive girl's face and unapproachable temperament. At that time, Hua was wearing exotic clothes, which was obviously not from the Sky Sword God's domain. She was so unattainable, like a flower on the precipice. He didn't know why Hua had such a temperament, and why she hid her identity on purpose. Living and growing up like an ordinary girl in the town. He only knew that at the first moment he saw the waist-high exalted girl, she caught his heart. In his eyes, she was absolutely the couldn't-be-offended girl type. An exalted, not just a town girl, but also a mysterious beautiful girl. Compared with Hua, all the girls in the town were nothing. She was the only one who he swore to have, at all cost. After that, he repeatedly tried to approach her, trying his best. But he only got Hua's contemptuous disregard. Yes, that was her look, the look as if she was looking at something dirty. Hua, you are my queen, my life, and my hope. No matter what the price is, I will marry you. Hong. After getting Ashen's kill order, the green hippo began to run. It rushed through the shallows with a mighty speed and ran straight toward Yunshi. Its speed was much faster than what others might have guessed from its huge body. Its power was almost the number one among all third-rank monsters, and it also had a super defense. In addition, it didn't even lack speed. Anyone whose rank wasn't above the third rank wouldn't survive if it was their first time against it. The hippo was very strong. This was what Yunshi experienced 121 times. Here it comes. Yunshi lowered his body, then immediately turned and ran. This was a strategic retreat because he did not have any weapons to break the green hippo's defense. using his fist to fight against this iron-skinned monster. He did once beat it down, but he was holding an iron sword at that time, and he still had to chop it 21 times. Yunshi wasn't insane. Weapon. He needed a weapon. An idea immediately emerged in Yunshi's mind, as he quickly rushed into the woods without hesitation. Run. Cry. Die in despair. Ashen showed no emotion in seeing Yunshi escape. As a human, you wanted to flee from a green hippo. Oh great. This guy would soon know what was the absolute gap between humans and creatures. As a creature, the hippo was a monster whose endurance and explosive force was far beyond the limit of humans, not to mention it was a mutant green hippo. It once continuously fought on the battlefield for over 3 days and nights and had a record of killing thousands of people. Run. Run. I want to see how long you can run. When you are exhausted, it will be the time of your death. This green hippo had the brutal habit of eating corpses after killing them. Bang! The green hippo crashed into the woods. The bucket-thick trees fell down due to its light push. The hippo's hunting began. Chapter 23, Woodchopper Bang, Bang. On the other side of the woods, one after another, the big trees fell down like they were being cut down by an axe. Well, Ashen, that guy, is really unscrupulous. Running in the woods, Yunshi didn't need to turn back as he had already figured out the distance between the green hippo and himself. That's right. For humans, it was absolutely impossible to compare their physical strength and endurance to a monster like the green hippo. And as a person who has seen the properties of the green hippo's seed, Yunshi was aware of its talent. Super strength, body bulk up, and overwhelming force. It was suitable for people who had talents for using a giant sword. Among all the third-rank creatures, the hippo's strength was almost invincible. Even if it was Hua, by considering just her strength, she wasn't better than the green hippo. This was a racial disparity. Just looking at its height, which was taller than 2 men, its massive body was a natural violent killing machine. The woods were small, and Yunshi also didn't think it could block the green hippo's way. He was looking for a place in his memory. Soon after, he found it. It was a cave located in the eastern foothills of the woods. The local townspeople often came here to take shelter from the rain or just to camp, and it was also their childhood secret base. Yunshi, Hua, and even Ashen were familiar with it. Without any hesitation, Yunshi directly rushed into the cave. After a while, the green hippo reached here, then Ashen. Haha, I was wondering where were you going, but you came here. Isn't this a dead end? Looking at Yunshi, who was quickly looking for something in the cave, Ashen laughed with a crooked mouth. This cave wasn't deep at all. Because the people in town often came here to camp, and the children also came to get shelter from the rain, everything inside was not a secret. He could still remember that in the past, himself, Hua, and the other little friends played hide-and-seek here. As he remembered it now, it was a rare chance in his life to have been able to get close to Hua in a natural way. But it was simply because this bread shop boy was here too. Yunshi, I'd like to show you some last bits of mercy. Kill yourself. If you willingly do this, I will not let the hippo eat you, but bury you in the woods. At least, you will die with a complete body. As victory was in his view, Ashen's face became more twisted. No game would be funnier than to have his rival kill himself. As for letting him die with a complete body, that was just mockery. Of course, he would chop up Yunshi's body and obliterate all traces. A buried body may be found and dug out by dogs. If he threw the corpse into the river, it may also be accidentally salvaged. Once and for all, the only way that wouldn't leave any trace was to eat him. His hippo was a man-eating pet. Here it is. After searching for a while in the upper part of the cave, where it was absolutely impossible to be found by kids, Yunshi smiled. As he expected, it was still here. Because the townspeople often came here to camp, pitch tents, and build a fire, the people of the town purposely left some convenient props in this place. A nail hammer, ignition torch, and the thing Yunshi most needed, a wood chopper, which was originally used to clean up weeds and cut branches. This was the weapon Yunshi needed to kill the green hippo, the key to his counterattack. Well, a chopper. Seeing Yunshi take out a wooden chopper from the cave, Ashen was stunned for a while. Then, he remembered there were these kinds of temporary tools inside. However, even if you had a wood chopper, so what? A wood chopper was nothing for the green hippo's thick and rough skin. Yes, his green hippo didn't wear its special leather which the Palace of Heaven's Road specially made for it, so it was impossible to kill thousands of people on the battlefield. But just to kill Yunshi? Even if Yunshi has a wood chopper, it wouldn't be more difficult than blowing off dust. Yunshi, please me because this is probably the last show of your life. With a joyous smile at the corner of his mouth, Ashen made a snap. Sniff, sniff. The green hippo shook his tail and strode toward Yunshi. It was coming. At this moment, Yunshi's mind was highly concentrated. He did not look down on this green hippo. Here wasn't the Trial of Stars, and there wasn't a campfire where he could revive from. In the real world, people would die after being killed, die. From its stride and body position, its next action was slapping. Who? A big green palm was waving above Yunshi's head, blowing up Yunshi's black hair. It was the green hippo's favorite attack method. The first. After rolling to the side, Yunshi cut the green hippo's lower limb and left a 1-inch bloodstain on its body. The third-rank hippo had strength far beyond a human's, and its leathery skin was able to resist any body attacks. In order to cut off its thick skin, he had to gather his strength and cut with an extremely sharp weapon. Both the iron sword in the trial and the wood chopper he had now were fit for this condition. Boom! The green hippo fell into a rage after Yunshi's chopper cut its body. It shook its shoulder and laid down on the ground. Here it was. The rolling. Yunshi stepped back with all his strength, then jumped up. Boom! Boom! The hippo's enormous body rolled under Yunshi's feet like a 1,000-pound bowling ball. It even left a line of roller marks on the ground. How could it possible? He's just a kid of a bread shop. Looking at Yunshi's skilled movements, Ashen's eyes almost popped out. It's Hua Hua. Hua Hua taught you, right? What happened during the time I was not in town? I won't forgive you. I'll never forgive you. Hua Hua is mine. Mine. Nobody can steal her from me. Sniff. Sniff. After rolling, the green hippo made an unbelievable somersault, standing on the ground. It showed its 4 sharp teeth and looked at Yunshi with an angry look. Ashen and the hippo had an intelligence resonance between them, almost the same as the tacit understanding between Hua Hua and himself. Obviously, there were many unknown stories between Ashen and the green hippo. Otherwise, as a second-rank Daoist priest, it was absolutely impossible for him to control the green hippo as if he was controlling his own arms and legs. Though the hippo was 10 times stronger than himself, their emotions were highly overlapped. Revising the data. After fighting with the green hippo, Yunshi found that the green hippo was stronger than the one he met in the trial. The reason was very simple. Because in the trial, the green hippo was fighting and maltreating its enemy simply according to its instinct. However, this green hippo followed Ashen's command. It wasn't alone. The experience he got in the trial through dying 100 times couldn't apply indiscriminately to what the green hippo would be like out here. Yunshi held the wood chopper in his hands, regardless of the blood that was slowly flowing on the blade of the chopper. It's not just you that got stronger, hippo. Let me show you the true power of Hua Hua's seed. Chapter 24. Different worlds. As Yunshi expected, with Ashen's command, the green hippo's attack methods became more flexible. If the green hippo he met in the trial was controlled by Ashen, it would have been impossible to kill it via his unformed breathing method. Hippo, hold your head and rush. The green hippo shaded its eyes with its hands as it followed Ashen's command. Rushing at Yunshi, it didn't even look ahead. It wasn't the hippo's max speed. Maybe other people would be cheated, but Yunshi obviously knew the green hippo's explosive force. Ashen would never know how to kill the green hippo, the hell of 100+ deaths Yunshi had to face. The green hippo preserved its speed, which also meant that it had found how Yunshi dodged its attack through rolling. If Yunshi rolled without thinking again, the green hippo's thunderclap would be waiting for him. So, he decided to not run away. Yunshi wasn't that young boy who first met the green hippo, who didn't know how to brandish his sword anymore. The seed from his childhood sweetheart had completely changed his destiny. I got you. Yunshi actively darted toward the green hippo. Under Ashen's surprised eyes, he straightly passed by the hippo. Just at that moment, he passed by the green hippo. By leveraging the hippo's strength and impact as he used the wood chopper, he dragged out a terrible bloodline along the green hippo's lateral thigh. Howl. For the first time ever, the green hippo howled violently. This time, the wood chopper caused a deep wound on the hippo's body, which was 3 times deeper than that one it caused the first time. A lot of blood flew out and sprayed on the road. Why, how can you do this? Ashen yelled with frustration. He didn't believe the sight he witnessed. His green hippo was a terrible monster who once battled on the battlefield for 3 days and nights, killing thousands of people. But now, it wasn't even able to catch the edges of Yunshi's clothes. The most irritating point was that Yunshi's speed wasn't fast. He was even a little slower than the hippo. No matter how Ashen looked at Yunshi, Yunshi was just a first-ranked swordsman. If a first-rank swordsman fought against a third-rank green hippo, the killing monster, should he not be killed at the first moment? How could he dodge the green hippo's attack at the crucial moments, and deal a deadly blow to his green hippo in the most appropriate time and from the most unlikely angle? If the green hippo didn't have its famous iron-like skin, perhaps his attack would have cut off the green hippo's leg. This is Huahua's power. Yunshi himself didn't even have the thought that his attack was as perfect as nature itself. If he only practiced on his own, he would never have such a wonderful skill. In the real world, the fighting between the green hippo and himself was worse than the dilemma he faced in the trial. Not simply because the green hippo was controlled by Ashen, but the more important fact was the difference between the 2 weapons he used. In the Star trial, though the iron sword he found aside the campfire was ugly in its appearance, it had a magic-like property that made it never get worn. Its blade would never get bent no matter how many times he cut the green hippo's body. But in reality, as the only weapon he could hurt the green hippo with, the wood chopper he found in the cave had slightly bent after attacking the green hippo twice. However, the 2 attacks gave him a victory far beyond the victory he achieved in the trial. Everything was due to Huahua's seed. He had only mastered 20% Huahua's sword skill, so naturally, he couldn't be compared to Huahua. However, compared to the green hippo, even if Yunshi had only 20% of Huahua's sword skill, he didn't think that he would lose. The world in Huahua's eyes was completely different to the world in Yunshi's eyes. The rhythm of breathing, the abrasion of the weapon, the premonition of enemy's sprint, the trace of attack, and Ashen's exasperated mental state. Observing and feeling every detail, then attacking to obtain victory. It was just a third-rank hippo. Even if it had Ashen's help, and though he had only a wood chopper, which wasn't even able to be used 10 times, the hippo was still not a huge threat. Clearly, Yunshi was in a fierce battle, but by running the special breathing method, his spirit had naturally raised to the highest state. As the proverb goes, do one's utmost even when dealing with a minor problem. He would do his best to kill the hippo. Mercy. There wasn't such a thing. Between life and death, everyone who hesitated to show mercy was already dead. 3 times. After adjusting his breathing smoothly, Yunshi lifted 3 of his fingers to Ashen. It was also the last order he gave his body. 3 attacks. If he didn't kill the green hippo after that, he would never be able to hurt the iron-skinned, third-rank monster. Wahahaha, who do you think you are? Even Huahua taught you how to roll and escape, but you want to beat down my hippo with 3 attacks. Even Huahua herself wouldn't be able to do that. Ashen looked at Yunshi as if he was looking at a clown. As a disciple of the Celestial Palace, he naturally had found what Yunshi had found. The wood chopper, which was already a little blunt, was the key to determining who was the last winner. Fortunately, this kid didn't have a decent weapon. Otherwise, perhaps he would have already been killed. Ashen wiped away the sweat from his forehead and announced his victory in his mind. If I were Huahua, I would need to brandish the wood chopper just 1 time. Yunshi looked at Ashen with pity. If Huahua were here, she would teach him what was the right way, a fool surviving in the world. Even if there were 10 green hippos attacking Huahua together, they would have no future but to be killed by Huahua 1 by 1. Though Ashen was known as the best genius of the town in the decade, since Huahua was an exception. However, he was still that frog, sitting in the hole, and thinking it owned the entire world. Hua Hua's talent had already gone beyond Ashen's imagination. He didn't understand what realm Hua Hua had reached. Through all of Yunshi's experience, Hua Hua was the only genius who was able to master a god's sword skill. Even the Sleeping Beauty, whose power was able to shake the heaven and earth, and burst the void, didn't have such an ability. Hippo, big wheel sprint. Ashen reached out with his left hand, then his right hand tightly held his left wrist, starting the Siamese juggling. This was a secret art from the Celestial Palace. It could temporarily combine two different creatures' energies and spirits. Who? The green hippo curled up its four limbs, rolling itself into a huge ball-like shape. Afterward, it suddenly jumped up. Its body turned into a green wheel-like shape and rushed towards Yunshi. As Yunshi expected, it had a new skill. Seeing the green hippo use a new killing skill, which it never used in the trial, a cold light flashed in Yunshi's eyes. Chapter 25. Instant kill. The green hippo rolled itself up like a big wheel. If Yunshi was still how he was before the star trial, it would undoubtedly be a one-hit KO. Its huge body, the terrifying explosive force, and its invulnerable tough skin made it a perfect killing machine. As Ashen casted a secret spell, the hippo's fighting force grew to at least 10 times stronger than the one he met in the trial. You don't have a horn on your head and you are not red, so even if you are 3 times more powerful, you are still gonna die. As a reply in facing the green hippo's wheel-like rolling attack, Yunshi inclined his body, taking 2 steps to the right. By using this seemingly simple but useful method, he made it charge into a giant rock. As he observed the world via Hua Hua's sight, even if the beast was twice stronger, it was still a stupid animal. Boom! It tumbled, flying to the sky. Eat him! Ashen was in extremely high spirits. In the sky, the hippo curled up its huge body, then one part of its body suddenly grew up. Here it was. Its ability, body bulk up. Yunshi knew it was the monster's hidden talent. However, the hippo only bulked up its head. Now, it opened its bloody mouth so big that it was even able to swallow Yunshi's body whole. The hippo's bite was a new skill Yunshi didn't see during the entire trial. Because at that time, Yunshi was just a not delicious at all mummy in the eyes of the beast. It had no appetite to eat him. Green hippos only used this skill to hunt delicious, fresh prey. Now, Yunshi was qualified. Even Ashen could feel that his hippo was very interested in Yunshi. My first hit. Facing the huge creature's bite, Yunshi didn't dodge but took the initiative to attack. With a flash of the blade, the green hippo's tongue was cut off. To cut off its softest part, its tongue was the essence of what Yunshi learned from Hua Hua's sword skill. Norg. At the same moment, his contract beast's tongue was cut off. Ashen covered his lips as there was blood flowing down. The green hippo suffered a fatal injury, and as a result, the same wound also appeared on Ashen's body. It was the effect of life tap. They were sharing damage. This was one of the prices he had to pay in order to control the third-rank green hippo. My second hit. After he successfully injured his opponent, Yunshi didn't hesitate for the slightest moment, because Hua Hua's sword skill had let him find the creature's weakness. In fact, there were gaps in the green hippo's seemingly tough skin. Because its joints had to stay nimble, there were line-like gaps on the connection parts of its neck, legs, and hands. These lines were unavoidable crucial points for any creature. In the trial, Yunshi didn't find these weak parts, so he had to cut it 21 times in order to make the green hippo die due to blood loss. If it was Hua Hua, even if she used only 20% of her power, she would only have to brandish her sword once. As for Yunshi, he needed to attack twice. The first attack cut off half of the green hippo's neck along the gap between its head and body. And along the line on the green hippo's right side, the second attack cut off 2 of its limbs in one breath. Maybe this was the feeling of dismembering an ox as skillfully as a butcher. Although, after cutting off these weak connection parts the wood chopper was blunted, the spewing blood declared Yunshi's victory. Seeing, listening and feeling Hua Hua's world made killing the green hippo much simpler. This is my last hit. Ashen, don't keep going in the wrong way. Yunshi turned his body flexibly and threw out the wood chopper with all his strength. It stabbed into somewhere below the green hippo's ass. Nog. Yunshi's fatal attack made Ashen's mouth foam as he laid on the ground, holding onto his ass with his hands in a weird way. Boom. The gigantic body collapsed. An item, which Yunshi felt a little familiar with, flew out from the corpse. This is a seed. Yunshi felt incredible as he watched the seed fly into his palm. It wasn't the same as the seed rewarded in the star trial. In the real world, the seed the green hippo left after being killed by Yunshi was a transparent seed, which emitted a pale white light and was seemingly so fragile that it couldn't even sustain a pinch. Inside of the seed, there wasn't some special instructions such as body bulk up, super strength, and overwhelmingly power. It only contained a ball of the power of blood. The seed of blood. As Yunshi read the meaning of the seed, he naturally understood what was different between it and the several seeds he got as the last reward in the rookie trial. This seed simply gathered the dead green hippo's life energy. It didn't contain any special talent or ability. Its only effect was to provide Yunshi the power of blood, to replenish his life energy. If Yunshi once again suffered from exhaustion, he could use the seed of blood to restore his physical strength and energy. The seed would disappear after being used. In other words, it was just a one-time consumable. Well, it's not that bad. Yunshi vaguely imagined several methods about how to use the seed, then his face slightly turned red. My hippo, no, this can't be true. After he lost his strongest trump card, Ashen felt as if his life had lost its color. In order to obtain such a strong contract beast, he had paid a lot of terrible and humiliating prices. Even he himself didn't believe he could endure all those dirty things. Everything he did was in order to go back to his town with glory and marry his beloved girl, but now, everything had gone to ruin. Ashen, you still don't realize it. You are not the only one who is worthy of Hua Hua. Walking to Ashen's side, Yunshi sympathetically looked at the son of the mayor, who had just lost his most important thing. No, I don't believe it. I'll kill you. Ashen's eyes turned blood red. It was not the end. He was a second-rank Daoist priest. Even without the green hippo's help, he could also win against this breadshop's kid, because he was only at the first rank. He hadn't lost yet. He would turn the tide. He would strike back. Burning, my Cosmo. 2. Oh, do you have to do that? After dodging Ashen's frenzied counterattack, Yunshi watched this young man, who was once called the town's Gemini with Hua Hua, helplessly grow old, perishing. In the end, he became a mummy-like corpse, heavily dropping down to the ground. Ashen's death was inevitable the moment his contracted beast died. Life tap, live and die together. This was the contract between the green hippo and himself. Tilde 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 tilde. 1. It meant Char Aznable's Zaku 2, from Gundam 0079, 2, Cosmo, from Saint Seiya, Legend of Sanctuary. Chapter 26. The Twin Saintess Ka. Yunshi was burying a Shun with a shovel. Nobody would be able to see any remnants of the human corpse Shun that was buried in the place which the green hippo had fallen. Actually, he had no intention to kill a Shun, but fighting the green hippo gave him no choice. It was either he died or the other died. He didn't have any other choice. When he noticed that the green hippo and a Shun had an unusual relationship, he had long been aware that there was no medicine that can possibly rescue him. A Shun, when you reincarnate, I know that you'll certainly hate me. But I must say one thing, you are truly mistaken. Having filled the soil, Yunshi plugged it with several branches. Putting the town's once-in-a-lifetime genius, who had unfortunately fallen astray, Shun into eternal slumber in the corner of a small forest. Goodbye, Shun. Nobody would have known that in this place there had been a soul-stirring battle of life and death. After walking quite far, Yunshi didn't notice that the pool of blood left by the dead green hippo vanished in the wilderness as soon as a blue light flashed. White mist slowly filled the air in the warm spring water as the exhausted Yunshi collapsed in the spring, unable to even move a finger. That guy, Shun, really got a fearful thing. Lying down in the familiar hot spring, the deathmatch struggle a moment ago reappeared in Yunshi's mind once again. Only by recalling the last 3 moves he used to solve the green hippo, He saw that the moves had contained a transition movement, root lines, as well as the limit use of the blade's edge. Hua Hua, you are rather too strong. Without having experienced an actual battle by himself, Yunshi was simply unable to imagine how fearful his childhood sweetheart Hua Hua was in the sword arts realm. A Shun was in fact not weak. That green hippo had a roller compaction move which could overwhelm all under the third-rank powerhouse. But in Hua Hua's eyes, this green hippo was not that different than a piece of meat on the chopping block. So long as there was a knife, it would fall in seconds easily. To think that between people a gap this big of a degree existed. While his whole body was immersed in the hot spring, Yunshi unconsciously used the breathing practice technique he got from Hua Hua. Until now, he didn't know the name of this secret breathing technique. According to Hua Hua, this technique was seemingly as simple as the basic breathing practice method. But Yunshi also knew, even before he learned his half-baked breathing practice method from Hua Hua, that this was absolutely very extraordinary. Not only was this breathing practice method amazing for a beginner, but his novice iron sword was also the same. When he recalled vividly in mind the green hippo's moves, even if he wished to kill that green hippo, it was absolutely impossible for him to do so. Hua Hua, in the end, Yunshi was very sure that there was no one in the town school that could teach this kind of thing. Neither in the Heavenly Sword God domain or the Western God domain, this kind of secret techniques level belonged only to the richest and powerful aristocrat family and had never been passed on to unauthorized people. Even a half-completed breathing practice method was so powerful, and through Hua Hua's seed, he could learn the complete edition of this breathing practice method. For Yunshi, it had opened a new door. Regarding mortal-grade cultivators, a formidable breathing practice method was the most important foundation. The reason for Yunshi's was that he easily accepted Hua Hua's seed and had the highest compatibility, since Hua Hua had laid the foundation for him to have lasting achievements. Originally, I had received such care. With every breath he took, Yunshi could clearly feel that his body was changing. Unlike the absorption of the hippo's soul that gave quick results and eruption-like changes, this seed was silently and smoothly promoting the most fundamental part of his physical quality. Exhale, inhale. While practicing the secret breathing practice technique from Hua Hua, Yunshi's heart slowly became tranquil. The sound of the surrounding water, the wind blowing from the distant trees, and his heartbeat were slowly connected together, forming one kind of special rhythm. This was breathing, the most important vital activity for mortal life. It was also the beginning point for secret techniques practiced by all sects. Hua Hua's secret technique was absolutely that of the highest level. It tempered the most basic part to quench the body into perfection and laid the most perfect foundation for all steps taken in the future. In many people's eyes, even geniuses such as a Shin, when they were in mortal grade, they would pursue pure battle efficiency only. And for this reason, they didn't even hesitate to do dishonest things. These kinds of so-called geniuses nearly had no hope to enter the fourth rank, the hero rank. Even if they used some method to overdraft their future potential and barely broke through the grade, their advancement would still be stopped at the fourth rank. After they entered old age, their vitality would become so weak that they would step back and regress into the mortal rank again. They were lacking something, which was the basic physical quenching that was offered through a breathing practice method to temper their body to perfection. They were too obsessed and eager to cross the threshold for quick success and immediate gain, forgetting about their foundation. Hua Hua's foundation was unknown. How many times better was it compared to a Shin's? Their future achievement would have been worlds apart. Therefore, a Shin, how would you even possibly pursue Hua Hua? Moreover, Hua Hua and I, thinking about that incomparably tragic future, Yunshi couldn't help but sigh. Regardless of everything, had that 7th rank apostle come here, she was strong enough to sweep away the entire White Lotus sword domain, but that was a problem for later. Inhale. Though he was feeling hazy, Yunshi still practiced Hua Hua's secret breathing technique and maintained this state as most of his body sank into the hot spring, leaving only his nose and mouth above the water's surface. Getting immersed in this state of ecstasy meant that he had successfully practiced this secret breathing technique, as he then quickly sat in meditation and forgot everything. Having experienced a deathmatch with the green hippo, Yunshi became aware of his cultivation path advancement, as he finally started to transform himself to enter this world. Meditating coupled with the aid of this hot spring really helped his blood circulation. He continued to remain in this state for quite a long time. Even Yunshi was unaware that the sky had darkened. At a nearby river where he was chased down and had killed the green hippo, a troop from afar was camping. One after another, white lotus-shaped lanterns were hung up in midair as layers of formation then formed, which even birds were unable to enter. Welcome, Her Highness White Lotus Saintess. Welcome, Her Highness Red Lotus Saintess. If Yunshi was here, he could see that the mayor was kneeling down on the ground and sweating profusely with an anxious expression fully drawn on his face. They had already reminded that kid Aishan countless times that he must by all means rush here before tonight to greet the Sword Palace's messenger. That was also ordered by the Emperor personally because these two saintesses were the White Lotus Sword Domain's next successors. They were not only well known as geniuses of the millennium in the White Lotus Sword Domain, but their souls were also interlinked. Their titles are White Lotus Saintess and Red Lotus Saintess. Enough with ceremony, we are only passing through here, and will only select disciples for the Sword Palace. We don't want to enter the town and disturb the inhabitants. Beads of sweats were streaming down from the mayor's bald forehead. The heavens might have taken a pity on this small town since this town was the most ordinary frontier region in the White Lotus Sword Domain with a population of tens of thousands people. So how would they have the opportunity to greet such a great VIP like the White Lotus Saintess? And these two had already stepped into the hero rank, they were peerless powerhouses. Moreover, it was said that they were only 14 years old now. Chapter 27. Captured Yunshi in the mountain's hot spring. Yunshi entered the most fantastic cultivation state since his birth. Huahua's seed was slowly emitting out its special spiritual spark and his body was helping him digest the talents with the mystical breathing method. Gradually, on the surface of the water, round ripples appeared around Yunshi. In sync with Yunshi's breathing, these ripples spread out and radiated one after another. His breathing slowly became nearly inaudible. At first, his nose and mouth were exposed on the surface of the hot spring, but now they sunk into the water. In the foggy hot spring, Yunshi's breath had already dissolved into nature itself, invisible and untouchable. This was a wonderful realm which was so difficult to touch by mortals, even for hero-ranked warriors. Taoists called it enlightenment. Buddhists called it epiphany. In the Western gods' domains, sorcerers and wizards called it God's thought. No matter what kind of description, they all pointed to this state, a state which was like a merging with natural itself, to feel the truth of the world. It wasn't relevant to strength, but was more reliant on one's personal understanding, luck or chance. Many hero-ranked warriors didn't get to enter into this state even once during their life, but due to an accident or something else, many ordinary people had the chance to get into this realm. Each mortal, as long as they had entered into this realm once, with no exception, all of them stepped into the realm of the hero rank in the end. Due to this state was also called the permit of hero rank. By using Huahua's breathing method and fighting with the green hippo, Yunshi finally broke the invisible barrier and grew Huahua's seed to a condition that was able to support him to enter the state of epiphany. However, Yunshi didn't know why. He had a strange feeling that he was pretty familiar with this state. I'm here again. Yunshi raised up his head, looking at the gate from a distance. It was a gate that stood upright between heaven and earth, high above the clouds. It was a scene that Yunshi had seen in his dream a lot of times. This scene had been in his dream since long, long ago. He clearly remembered almost every next step. A loitering spirit again? In front of the giant cloud gate, the guardian showed her killing intent to the uninvited invader. This isn't a trial. Quickly, Yunshi had found that it was a different world from the star trial. Because he didn't see the campfire which was used for resurrection. Besides, there wasn't any weapon prepared for the newbie. On top of that, the opponent he had to face was the guardian of the gate, whose level was so high that it couldn't even be identified. 3 wisps of icy blue hair were blowing in the wind, her long ponytail was hung down along her back as the giant sword was pulled up from the ground and held in her hands. What a cold, but holy sword. Its sword blade was cold, silvery white, and its handle was studded with a big lock hole. When the girl pulled out the sword, Yunshi seemed to see his death. Its sword-type tassel danced in the air. Light flowed along the blade, as the Knight of Destiny, cold and without mercy. Swish. Again, Yunshi was cut in two at his waist as he then turned into dust and disappeared from the beautiful blue dream. Recently, isn't the invasion of loitering spirits a little too much? The girl frowned, though she had killed the invader again. Was it her illusion? The loitering spirit she killed just now looked a little different. Perhaps, it was like an ant becoming a bigger ant. I died again. Yunshi depressingly opened his eyes and found that he was in another completely different world again. What a big tree. Maybe it was hundreds of meters tall. He couldn't see its top even if he raised up his head. What a giant stone. Each stone was almost a dozen times bigger than his own body. As for the mountain, it looked as if it was tens of thousands of meters tall. What a wide and vast river. Was this the kingdom of the giants? How many people would be drowned in the river since it was so deep? What a short and small paw. Wait, paw. Yunshi speechlessly raised his head and looked at his own hand, a furry, soft paw. Then he looked at his inverted image in the river. What a cute, unbelievably pitiful little golden dog. The most important thing was that he was quite familiar with the little golden dog. Maya. Touching his own furry small face, Yunshi questioned his star fairy. Master. Maya's happy voice appeared in Yunshi's heart, no, in her own heart. Tell me, what's going on now? Yunshi felt strange in his current visual angle and body. He finally understood. The world was so big and dangerous in the eyes of the little golden dog. Hey. Master, you probably unconsciously occupied my body while you were practicing. Master, don't worry. You will naturally return to your body after you finish your practice. My body is Master's possession from the beginning. Maya didn't feel uncomfortable seeing that her body was occupied by Yunshi. If so, it's not that bad. Yunshi slightly breathed out a sigh of relief. Since it was temporary, he could bear it. As Yunshi tried to control Maya's body to walk back to himself, he heard an unfamiliar girl's voice. Hey! There is a lonely little golden dog. It's so pitiful. Sister, can we pick it up? No. Wandering dogs are dirty. It will stain your clothes. If so, let's help it take a bath. What a cute little guy. It must have suffered a lot during its wandering life. Oh, right. The mayor told me that there is a hot spring. Not good. Yunshi had a bad feeling. He immediately spread his legs, planning to run away. He started Hua Hua's seed. Unfortunately, the body he controlled now belonged to the little golden dog. Even if Hua Hua's seed was great, it was also impossible to let a golden dog run like a human. Moreover, even if Yunshi was controlling his own body now, it was also a waste of effort to try to run away. Because the girl who was ready to catch Maya was far more powerful than Yunshi's imagination. You always make me sigh. Okay, I will do it for you, but just this once. The sister's voice was a little helpless, but also spoiling. Then, Yunshi found that, though he was trying his best to run away, he was going backwards, as if time was turning back. At first, the river was flowing at a great speed. But now, an enormous power forced it to flow backwards. Tens of thousands of tons of river water rolled to the sky with countless fish and prawns. For an instant, the boundary of the sky and earth became a little ambiguous. Countless whirlpools swept across Yunshi. They stopped his escape and finally made him fall onto a snow-white small palm. It was a seemingly soft and small palm. It just softly waved, then reversed the flow of tens of thousands of tons of river water and rolled the airstreams between the sky and earth. It was this incredible scene that successfully caught Yunshi. White Lotus, got it. Great. You're the best, sister. Chapter 28. The dangerous sisters struggling and struggling, Yunshi was desperately trying to get away from the warm embrace and escape. Unfortunately, it seemed to be an absolutely impossible task. Because the one who was holding him now was the young girl who just casually waved her hand and made the river flow backward, creating a powerful vortex that blasted him out to the world. This was not the power any mortal grade could have. It was even stronger than Hua Hua, who could possibly be said as the strongest sword arts genius in the mortal grade. A sharp blade can cut steel, but it absolutely could never roll up a storm. This extraordinary force was beyond the limit of a peak third-rank mortal grade. Only one who had entered into the fourth rank, a hero-rank powerhouse, would have this kind of ability. No matter if it was one to the two big mainstreams in the Eastern God Domain, the swordsmen or the Daoist priests, or to all other practitioners without the God Domain, this rank was regarded as the most important step. Below the fourth rank, beasts such as the green hippo could only train its flesh and blood to the limit. However, if one wanted to break the limitation of the flesh and blood, he must enter a higher domain, which was known as the hero rank. Wu. After desperately struggling for a while, Yunshi had to admit that even if he had the power of Huahua's seed, it was useless. The opponents were just too strong. It's strange, this golden dog seems to be. The young girl who waved her hand and captured Yunshi smelled the bleached golden-haired puppy dog's flavor and revealed a puzzled expression. It's not an ordinary golden hair, it seems like the Western God Domain's golden fur princess. How could it be possible? This is the White Lotus Sword Domain. The golden fur princesses are spoiled since birth in the Western God Domain, so how could this one stray into the wilderness? The younger sister said while her bell-like laughter sounded. It was delightful and pleasant to the ears. Pooh, with great difficulty, Yunshi finally drilled out from the cage and looked up to the pair of sisters that seized him. He couldn't help but look expressionless. These two sisters had black and straight long hair, but their clothing and personal adornments were miles apart. The sister on the right wore red gemstone hair ornaments, with red petals like maple leaves, and was gorgeous and unrestrained. She was wearing some kind of witch clothes which were inscribed with a sword and flames similar to the dazzling burning flame of a red lotus. The sister on the left wore white crystal hair ornaments, with crystal clear petals just like the ice, depicting a snow lotus, looking sacred and graceful. She wore almost exactly the same clothing design as her sister, but inscribed on it were pieces of lotus leaves, the white lotus. Red lotus and white lotus. It was precisely the best way to depict their portrayal. It wasn't just their clothing and personal adornments, but their features were also very alike. Seeing them from this too close of a distance, these two looked almost exactly the same. But how come there seemed to be something that was not quite right when looking at them? From Maya's angle, there was some kind of strange sensation that he couldn't tell from these two sisters. Then how would you explain this feeling? The older sister raised Maya's small body as she guided the younger sister's hand to repeatedly stroke Maya's body up and down. Not even the most shameful part was left out from their touch. I cannot marry anymore. Having been played like this, Yunshi could only feel a kind grief and have mixed feelings. It was the first time since birth that he felt he was so ravaged and devastated by a human. Hey, this feeling, these hairs, there is so much spiritual chi. The younger sister was surprised. She looked at Yunshi and smelled Maya's fragrance. This good and nice fragrance, is this the legendary golden fur princess? It is possible, but we have not seen that legendary creature. How did this kind of pet live in this destitute and wild country? The older sister frowned. Even if she wanted to know, she could not understand it. That was only natural, because Maya was not a golden fur princess, but the nobler star fairy. Yunshi helplessly shook his head. This misunderstanding might not be able to be solved in the future. Could it be that this fellow belongs to a Western God Domain's princess and she accidentally let this fellow run? The younger sister looked like she was taking a fancy to Yunshi's body. Do you really like this little fellow? Looking at her younger sister that seemed unable to put it down, Red Lotus's eyes revealed a gentle expression. Even she rarely saw such a warm expression in her younger sister's eyes. The golden fairy of the golden fur princess may bring wealth and fortune to humans. They were the Western God Domain's mascot figure which made countless princesses, princes, and dukes long of dreaming for a golden fairy. This creature really deserved their reputation. I am really sorry, even if you are a Western God Domain's princess's pet, I don't have any choice, but to make her give up her treasure. Just look at my sister Bailian's happy expression. It's from the bottom of her heart. The older sister Honglian set a firm resolve in her heart. In this world, the things that could make Bailian happy became fewer as their values became more and more precious. The glory and splendor, the riches and honor, the popularity, the top status and position, they could easily obtain these things easily without even trying. Regarding the White Lotus Sword Domain Saintesses, the things that could move their hearts were really too few. The encounter with this little golden fur dog inadvertently broke into these sisters' heart. It must be fated, it couldn't have been a random accident. Thank you, the Great. We hope that we can walk together with you on the road to the future. Honglien quietly made a gesture and drew overlapping strange traces in front of her. Master, be careful, be careful, be careful, don't reveal any flaws. Suddenly, Maya called out in Yunshi's mind. What happened? For the first time, Yunshi heard his star fairy let out such hasty and restless shout. It seemed that he had encountered a very dangerous problem and had to be informed in advance. Yes, Master, you are in danger, and moreover, it's fatal danger. This pair of twins of destiny are the Apostles' candidate. Maya sent out the greatest warning to remind Yunshi that his life was already at stake. The Apostles' candidate. His ex-girlfriend? A gigantic alarm sounded loudly in Yunshi's mind. Although they did not directly reach the level of genuine apostles, they were the candidates. Just looking at that technique, they were absolutely not at the level where he could contend with. These two were true hero rank powerhouses, they could reverse the river flow with a wave of a hand. An existence that could create a fearful tornado vortex. Moreover, the hero rank. Yunshi suddenly looked up and watched the twins. An outlined impression instantly floated in his heart. Yes, it was them. The same as a Shun's green hippo that was selected by the stars as his first smelting trial to reach the final goal in the love system. Back then, he had used a kiss to wake the sleeping beauty that was in a deep slumber in the deepest part of the forest. It turned out that the sleeping beauty was not a person, but a pair of twins. Chapter 29. Their secret. Let's go. It's a rare opportunity for us to visit a hot spring. Red Lotus waved her small hand. The twins witches were naturally suspended in the air, flying to the mountain like a pair of swallows. Flying. Even among the hero rank strongest, there weren't too many people who had mastered this ability. Except for some races who were born with wings, those at hero rank who could fly freely were clearly a terrible presence. Be careful, Master. You are no match for them now. They're a pair of twins who are cursed by destiny, Maya carefully warned Yunshi not to be found. A pair of twins who are cursed by destiny. Through Maya's eyes, Yunshi looked at the flying pair of saints and felt something was wrong with their bodies. Inside the mountain fog, the twins quickly arrived at the hot spring. It was a specialty only the townspeople knew of. Not good, not good, not good. Yunshi peeped in a narrow corner of the hot spring with sweat dripping. His body was there, in meditation. If the twins found him, he didn't need to consider if he would die, but how he would die. No matter if it was the elder sister, Red Lotus, or the young sister, White Lotus, they could kill him easily like crushing an ant with a finger. The absolute distance between their strength wasn't something that could be filled by using only 20% of Huahua's seed. Red Lotus and White Lotus. They were the apostle candidates of his ex-girlfriend. They were the powerful terrible warriors that Yunshi had ever seen. Scanning in front of the hot spring, the elder sister Red Lotus lifted her forefinger. A spirit light scanned the area and exposed the view of the hot spring. Nothing special. Seems there is a first-rank turtle. Ignore it. Red Lotus looked at Yunshi's location. Her spirit light told her that it was a slow-breathing, unmoving first-rank creature. It didn't have any life wave. Perhaps it really was a turtle. Only this kind of creature could make their breathing and heartbeat close to zero, but still kept their life wave soft and gentle. Let's bathe our little golden dog. The young sister White Lotus held Yunshi in her arms with a happy smile. Wait, all-seeing, my Red Lotus sword. On Red Lotus's fingertip appeared countless of light points as they converged into a deep red light sword suspended in the air. Centered in the sword light, within 1 kilometer, no birds could fly in. If any visitor wanted to come in, he had to first break through the light sword. After getting prepared, Red Lotus snapped her fingers. Who knows what material their fantastic garments were made of? After Red Lotus's snapped, it turned into countless soft, silk threads. The red silk threads were like hot flames, filled with a fiery aura. The white silk threads were like unmelted ice and snow, bringing cold air. Two kinds of fantastic silk threads knitted together and constituted two unique holy vestments which Yunshi had never seen before. They were enchanted with various kinds of special abilities. After taking off their vestments, the twin witches exposed their snow-white skin and slender, graceful bodies. Just like the sleeping beauty Yunshi saw in the dark forest. Their ice-like skin and flawless soft necks were so graceful and mellow. On their beautiful, gem-like bodies, stood exquisite and smooth nipples. Their slender body contour perfectly shrunk down to 2 points, showcasing their sexy pink fruits that lightly swayed in front of Yunshi's eyes. White Lotus's mellow body curved through her 2 peaks, then through her smooth little belly, till it stopped at her slim, but whippy waist. It was exquisite like jade, but also gave people a good hand feel. From her slender waist till the bottom of her stomach, her beautiful body curve finally stopped at her slim long legs. After taking off the white socks, her white, beautiful and soft little toes were incredibly cute and beautiful. Her jade-like little pink feet were smooth and glossy. Her 5 small toes curled up together. The back of her feet were fine and smooth. Her ankles were slender. Her entire feet was so soft, it was seemed to have been made from soap. Red Lotus reached out her hands and gently grasped her sister's round heel, then tickled her soles. Ahahaha, sister, no. While holding Yunshi in her arms, White Lotus kneeled over in laughter. Her feet felt unstoppably itchy, as she kicked and splashed the water. Hey, it's a punishment for your stubbornness. It's not an easy game to feed a little dog. Besides, I think this little golden dog has a master. After teasing the sensitive body of her shy sister, Red Lotus raised up Yunshi. Her eyes became more certain. As expected, you are a golden fairy. Why do both hua and you think that Maya is a golden fairy? Yunshi muttered and peeped at the location of his own body. Close. They were too close to his body. Originally, it wasn't a big hot spring. Once the twin witches paid a little attention to that corner, he would be exposed. In this case, even though he didn't like it, he still needed to play his role as a little dog. Struggle, struggle, struggle. In order to save his own life, Yunshi tried his best to attract the twin witch's attention to the little golden dog. Don't move, little dog. Let me help you bathe. The younger sister White Lotus was seemingly the gentle and kind one between the twins. She took over Yunshi from her sister's hands again and began to carefully wash the little golden dog's body. Wait, their bodies. Finally, Yunshi noticed why he felt that they were strange from the beginning. They weren't just inseparable, but always held their hands at any time. No, they weren't just holding their hands. Their hands were really joined together, Red Lotus's left hand and White Lotus's right hand. The left side of Red Lotus's body and the right side of White Lotus's body. Between them, some kind of diaphanous silk thread joined them together. Yunshi had thought that they were holding hands, but in fact, it was just his misconception because their clothes were naturally connected together. Within these silk threads was a kind of spirit light which made Yunshi feel uncomfortable. There was even blood flowing inside it, permanently binding the twins together. The twins cursed by destiny. Yunshi remembered Maya's words. So, this was their curse, the proof of the twin saints. White Lotus and Red Lotus were inseparable. Chapter 30, Poisoned Saintess so comfortable. This hot spring is great. After teasing her sister's toes, Red Lotus stretched her body. Seeing her pair of rabbits swaying, Yunshi almost failed to keep his composure. Dear heavens! Since the summer his sword skill teacher taught him that lesson, he had never experienced this kind of gentleness. He didn't even know where he should put his eyes on in front of the pair of twins. This time, the higher person gave a special instruction. They wanted us to invite the sword talent with our largest sincerity. No one expected that she was living in such a remote town, far away from the center of the god's domains. Sword talent? Living in this remote town? After hearing this, Yunshi was confused for a while. Then, his childhood sweetheart's appearance appeared in his mind. The first girl to reach the 3rd rank before her 16th birthday was the center of jealousy of all children at the same age. If Red Lotus was talking about this small town, then only Hua Hua was eligible to be called as a genius. Regarding her family background and talent, if her family didn't have that accident, she would never have come to the White Lotus sword domain. Red Lotus sighed. Originally, she should be a girl respected and focused on by everyone. Every gem will shine in the end. Even in such a remote area, her light still can't be covered, can't she? White Lotus smiled faintly. This is also the reason why we personally came here to invite her to join the Sword Palace. Other forces haven't found her yet. Even we only found out by accident. Yes, she really is a peerless genius. Someday, she will leave here and shock the entire world. We just came here to invite her in advance. Hua Hua, long time no see. His presentiment came true. They were here for Hua Hua. Even though he had had a feeling that Hua Hua wasn't a simple girl, but Yunshi finally heard the conclusive evidence from their conversation. Hua Hua didn't belong to the small town. As the twins said, her talent wasn't something this small town could gestate. Yunshi vaguely remembered that Hua Hua's family was from the Western God's domain. However, it's been 10 years. Every townspeople now considered Hua Hua's family as a part of the town. However, everyone also knew that someday Hua Hua would one day leave this common small town. Hua Hua was a third-rank sword genius and was the strongest 16th-years-old girl. Such a girl would definitely step onto a higher stage in the future. Red Lotus and White Lotus, the pair of twins, came to invite Hua Hua. But something is strange. I received another instruction. It's about searching for a special person. After talking about their purpose of travel, Red Lotus turned the topic to another one. Another order. About what? White Lotus curiously reached out her small hand, drawing a fantastic crossing mark in the air. It didn't have any explicit direction. They just asked me to pay attention to this area, looking for some upstart geniuses. Especially a liar who appears suddenly, seems very honest, but in fact, likes to flirt with women. Anyone who finds him can give up any other mission and order all the apostles to alternate and hunt this liar down at all costs. The priority of this instruction is incredibly high. What kind of liar can make them issue such an order at all costs? Red Lotus was also surprised by it. After she became the apostles' candidate, she never saw such a high priority order. In her imagination, the liar must have caused an unforgivable trouble. Even that presence lost her temper and issued a fatwa. 1. TSK, the liar will die miserably. White Lotus could image that once the person was found, a miserable ending would be waiting for him. I'm afraid the liar isn't an ordinary person, since it was that presence that issued the fatwa. If we find him, we might have to fight with all our strength. Red Lotus's eyes showed that she was serious. The liar, did it mean? Sweat streamed down Yunshi's face. He finally understood what the highest warning Maya said meanly. He was just a first-rank swordsman, but the twin witches were at the hero rank. If they found him, he would get to know the meaning of despair. Sister, let's forget these boring things. Let's talk about our dream. White Lotus seemingly had no interest in battles and chases, but girlishly remembered the interesting thing they met not long ago. I won't listen. That nightmare. It's the shame of a lifetime. Once her sister spoke of the dream, Red Lotus's face turned red. I won't admit it. As the Red Lotus Saint, the owner of the Holy Sword, how could I have such a shameless dream? I am not that kind of person. Yes, it was impossible. Unreasonable. She put her mind to cultivating, defeated all opponents with her sister, reached the position as a saint, and garnered attention from that supreme presence, obtaining the identity as the apostles' candidate. Would she have such a girlish dream? It was extremely ridiculous. In the dark forest surrounded by brambles, she was kissed by an unknown man. It was the biggest shame in her life. She didn't even remember the man's face. Giggle I don't think it's a bad thing. After all, sister, you are a girl. It's not strange to have a dream about falling in love. In the dark forest, the cursed beautiful princess fell into a slumber, but was finally woke up by her destined prince's kiss. What a romantic story. Why didn't I stop you? Otherwise, at least, I could see the prince's face. Unlike her serious sister Red Lotus, the young sister White Lotus's eyes were full of a girlish, dreamy atmosphere. "Prince, Prince, where are you, my prince? For you, I'm willing to be the cursed princess, sleeping in the dark forest and waiting for your arrival. I believe someday, you will come to me just like in the dream, take my hands and kiss my lips. Do you know after that, in my dream, I met with you every day?" Red Lotus eyes gazed at White Lotus, as if this was the first time she recognized that her sister was so unreliable. "Ah, yes." Unlike other people's imagination, in fact, the honorable, mysterious White Lotus Saint was a fantastical girl who liked to read romantic novels of the Western gods' domains, and was addicted to the stories about princesses and princes. Commonly, people called it the pubescent girl indulged in love. Tilde 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 tilde. One fatwa is just an old term for decree or command. Chapter 31. Turtle catching the dark forest, the sleeping beauty, and their kiss. How could they possibly remember it? Stars. Couldn't you erase their memories more cleanly? Now, he was really in a big trouble. Yunshi heard the whisper of the twin witches with sweat covering his face. He found that he underestimated the impact of the stars' trial. No matter if it was Hua Hua or the pair of Saintess, once he was to be exposed, he would have to face a miserable end. "Don't think so much. I won't agree with you falling in love with anyone. Tempering our strength and becoming stronger so that finally, no one can control our fate. This is the only thing we should focus on. Love is just a kind of temporary illusion." Red Lotus firmly denied her sister's dream of love. They were the pair of twin witches who were doomed to be the passer of the treasure of the White Lotus Sword domain. They had no time to play love games. "You're wrong, sister. Love always comes suddenly, just as you didn't expect that you would have such a romantic dream, right?" White Lotus reached out her hands and pressed her chest. "Till now, my heart's still pounding. This feeling is so strong, it must be the so-called love at the first sight. My prince," he appeared. "Even so, it's just your imagination. Loving a person in a dream at the first sight? I don't know how to appraise your mind," Red Lotus said with a grumpy tone as she looked at her sister falling into an illusion. What was going on? It was just an ambiguous and absurd dream, but her sister suddenly fell in it, as if she was being possessed. After waking up from that dream, she always talked about the prince in her dream and even vowed that she would have a wonderful meeting with her dreamy prince. "My sister, you are too naive. She worries that if she didn't take care of her, her innocent sister would be beguiled by some malicious people in the blink of an eye. But, if I'm in love, won't sister be lonely?" White Lotus winked her big innocent eyes, worrying about her sister, whose personality was so strong that she couldn't possible to fall in love with anyone. "If you fall in love with someone, if that's true, I will be in a big trouble." As she slightly imagined what would happen if someone cheated her sister and made her fall in love, Red Lotus was thrilled, as she then looked at their joined hands with a mixed feeling. They were a pair of twins linked together by fate. In the meanwhile, they were also a pair of cursed twins. Since they were born, they were joined together. Hand in hand, both halves of their body, they were linked together by incredible lines. They had these invisible lines since their birth. It gave them superior talents and made them hero-rank warriors while they were still 14 years old. Equally, these invisible lines also bound them together. It made them unable to leave each other. Their breathing, heartbeat, and cultivation methods were all closely linked to these lines. Even at the time the Overlord paid attention to them, she also clearly told them that they couldn't cut off the lines. If they used brute force to cut off these lines, both White Lotus and her would die. Because their souls, the source of their life, were closely linked together through the lines. They shared the same fate, they would live and die together. They were the eternal twins, they were the cursed twins. Theoretically, humans couldn't reach hero rank before 16 years old because their immature bodies couldn't bear the power of the hero rank. But they could because they shared each other's strength and could merge each other's different properties of power. They were like the great way of yin and yang. Red Lotus was yang and her sister White Lotus was yin. As a pair of twins, their cultivating speed was not only twice, but overwhelmed other people's practicing speed by more than 10 times. This ability made them the presumptive master of the White Lotus Sword domain in the future, though they were only 14-year-old juveniles. In the meanwhile, it also brought them giant pains. Once others knew that they were a pair of cursed twins, though they wouldn't expose their mind on their faces, but their eyes would subconsciously become weird. In face of a thing they didn't understand and wasn't able to control, people were always dismayed, disturbed, or even frightened. Long, long ago, she had understood that she had to become strong, far stronger than anyone else. In that case, she could protect her innocent sister's clear eyes away from the dark side of the world. But now, there was a serious problem. Her cute, innocent, and carefree sister fell in love with a ridiculous, non-existent dream person. Oh, gods, what was wrong with her? She regretted that she had such a shameless and ridiculous dream. What a bad effect the dream brought to her sister. I think that you should pay more attention to this little dog. At any rate, it's better than the non-existent dream prince. I will take a break. Now, Red Lotus was glad she caught the little golden dog, at least she could use it to divert her sister's attention. The dream prince, go to hell 10,000 times. You are not even worth one of this little golden dog's hair. After washing Yunshi clean and handing him to her sister, Red Lotus closed her eyes and entered a dormant-like state. This was a tacit understanding between the twins. Because their bodies were linked together through the invisible lines, they couldn't leave each other. In that case, only when one side of them entered the dormant state, could the other side have a short amount of free time. In the daytime, most of the time, Red Lotus took hold of their actions. In the night, she would temporarily sleep for a while to let her sister move freely and play games. Okay, little golden dog, come here. White Lotus adroitly stood up and held Yunshi in her arms, who was still in a stunned state. Red Lotus's body naturally followed White Lotus, floating like a ghost by her side. Their tacit understanding was already deeply in their souls. I don't know why, but my first glance had told me that we are destined. Little golden dog, do you want to live with me from now on? White Lotus lifted up Yunshi's body and gave him a gentle kiss. The twin witches' white, fragrant and soft bodies had been seen by Yunshi from top to bottom. But he swore that it wasn't on purpose. Right, sister said that there is a turtle, let's go to catch it, would you like that? Yunshi still didn't recover from shyness, but when he heard White Lotus, he almost scared his nerves out. Turtle? Turtle. Chapter 32. Let go of the turtle. No, no. Don't look at that place. Yunshi desperately controlled Maya's body, trying to stop the girl. Unfortunately, it was obvious that Maya's poor body had no strength to stop her. 1 step, 2 steps, White Lotus was nearly walking on the water, slowly getting close to Yunshi's sleeping place. Bad, really bad. He would be found by the apostle's alternate of his ex-girlfriend, get caught by her, and sent to one of his ex-girlfriends and forced to do various shameless things. Yunshi closed his eyes and waited for the judgment of fate. Turtle, where's the turtle? As Yunshi hopelessly waited, White Lotus hummed a happy tune, walking to the location where Yunshi hid his true body. Inside the water's mist, Yunshi's body was sinking in the hot spring. His breathing was nearly zero and his life force was also imperceptible. Because of that, Red Lotus thought that he was just a turtle. However, it was just a special breathing method, not sneaking nor cloaking. The hot spring wasn't deep. Even if he had sunk to the bottom of the water, everyone would find the so-called turtle's true face if they came closer. Gee! Yunshi heard that White Lotus let out a cry of surprise, and a fantastic spirit wave spread out. No chance. Yunshi was regarded as a turtle by Red Lotus, now he exposed himself. She found him. He was found. Yunshi felt that the world faded and his life had come to an end. Should he resist? He was just a first-rank swordsman. In the face of one of the twin witches, who were at the hero rank, even though she was the slightly weak one, he knew he couldn't win. Ah! White Lotus sounded a little shy and seemed that it also contained some other meanings. Her seemingly turbulent spirit wave immediately subsided. What happened? Am I alive? Yunshi quietly opened his eyes and peeped at White Lotus, who was hugging his current body, the little golden dog, tightly, by using one hand and covering her mouth by using another hand. She looked pretty shy. It seems that because Red Lotus was in dormant mode, White Lotus's left hand was tightly bound to hers, but now it had a certain freedom. She could move her left hand within 1 meter. Her small hand covered her pink lips, and her eyes moved. Her expression looked as if she wanted to look at him, but didn't dare to look, which was ineffable cute. Yunshi turned around, and not surprisingly, he saw his sleeping body under the water. Through the misty surface of the water, he could see his own quiet eyes, perfect proportioned legs and arms, and his intangible rhythm of breathing. Why didn't she kill him? Oh right, she didn't know that he was the wanted Starchild. The twin witches had received the decree, but they didn't know the age and appearance of the wanted Starchild. So, in the eyes of White Lotus, she just suddenly found an unknown man in the hot spring. Then why didn't she kill him? For an instant, he'd felt the fleeting spirit wave. What made her stop? White Lotus was observing Yunshi's body again and again. Every few moments, she wouldn't be able to stand the shame and turned her red face away, but after a little while, she would peep at him again. There, on her fingertips gathered a group of mists. They slowly formed into a misty human shape. Contrasting the first character, 100% perfect. Contrasting the second character, 100% perfect. Substituting, judging, and locking on all the element. Yunshi looked at the changing, modifying human shape. He thought that it looked familiar. Oh right, it was himself. After White Lotus's small hands seized and modified the mist-made human, it looked more and more like Yunshi. Could it be? A ridiculous idea appeared in Yunshi's heart. Completed. Verify the model. White Lotus's eyes showed that she was serious. Unlike her sister Red Lotus, she was good at deduction and magic spells. As the yin side of the twin witches, she had a unique talent with math and deduction. It wouldn't be an exaggeration even if you said that she was the #1 in the entire White Lotus sword domain. Red Lotus's power was biased toward battle, while her power was biased toward assistance. So, when the twin witches teamed up together, they could burst out a really inconceivable battling force. Now, she was trying her best to deduce and instantiate the person who was at first nebulous, inside her memory. At first, she couldn't do it simply by using the data she obtained from her dream. However, except for the inorganic data, she had a bug-like tool named the instinct of a girl in love. At the first glance, as she saw the person, her heart beat unreasonably as countless messy data appeared in her mind. The girl's instinct told her not to use a magic spell but to instantly deduce the data, build a model, and then try to calculate the result. The possibility is near 100%. No, it's 100%. My presentiment is right. Someday you will come to me like a gift dropped from the sky. Just like the story goes on, you're my own prince. Hugging Yunshi's body, White Lotus blushed like a sunset cloud in the summer. I found you. You are mine. My dream, the #1 prince in the world. Too bad, she found about that. Yunshi sighed about his bad luck as he choked due to the girl's 2 white mountains. It was just a dream made by the stars. And the stars had blurred his face in the dream. Girl, why are you so incredible? How could you figure out that the damn turtle was your prince simply by calculating the data of my body shape? Apparently, they only met each other once in the dream of Sleeping Beauty's kiss. It was hard to imagine that as a hero-ranked twin witch, she was so nervous to the extent that it troubled her breathing. Being hugged in front of her chest, Yunshi could hear her strong heartbeat. Sister, I'm sorry. But only this, I can't give you. Because I found him first. Even if you are my sister, I want to take an advance on you. Sister, didn't you say that you hated the prince? So, you won't mind I take one step first, right? The girl cheered for herself, then with a fearless expression, she hugged Yunshi in her arms, walking up to his body step by step. Bang! Bang! The girl's heartbeat echoed aside Yunshi's ears, shy, but soaring, firm, and excited. Wait, what were you going to do to the sleeping me? Why do you look so nervous, excited, as if you are preparing to commit a crime? Let go of the turtle. Chapter 33, Love of the Stars. Inside the pervasive water mist, White Lotus carefully, as if she was afraid of walking up the sleeping body, walked toward Yunxi, who was mistaken as a turtle by Red Lotus. My prince. My destined lover. No, you are mistaken. Yunxi tried to weep, but failed to shed a tear. He looked at the Saintess, who reached her hands towards his body, with a bad feeling rising up in his heart. Why? We just touched once in the stars trial, perhaps it was only a few seconds. Why is it that you can recognize me? Hey! As his sleeping body felt his soul's emotional turmoil, it slightly moved. This is bad, he was waking up. Though his soul was still inside Maya's body, but he could clearly feel that his integration with the gold dog would face the end. This time, his enlightenment had already perfectly finished. Even if the twin witches didn't come here, it wouldn't have been long before his self-awakening. This timing was extremely bad. Dimly, the bright light of the stars softly stroked Yunxi's soul to take him back to his own body. Yunxi woke up. Soon after, he opened his eyes, and before he could do anything, his lips were gently blocked by some soft stuff. The taste of White Lotus was a familiar one. However, this time, it wasn't the prince waking up the sleeping beauty with a kiss, but the younger sister of the twin witches waking her prince by her kiss. Everything was reversed. The girl kissed Yunxi's lips. Inside the diffused water mist, Yunxi clearly felt the fragrance of White Lotus's lips and her virgin breath. Do breaths have virginity? Though this was the first time she did this kind of thing, but White Lotus had read hundreds of romantic novels from the Western gods' domains. Naturally, she made it to the next step. Her soft small tongue easily broke through Yunxi's teeth. She sucked his tongue, tightly tangling their tongues together. Yunxi just finished his state of integration with nature. His body was in its most sensitive state. White Lotus's teasing immediately made him fall into a passionate kiss. Compared to their kiss in the dark forest, the kiss now was hotter. She didn't seem shy at all, such an impassioned girl. When White Lotus found that Yunxi had woken up, remembering what a shameless thing she was doing, her entire small face turned to red. No, that wasn't the worst, because she finally recognized her appearance in Yunxi's eyes. With her snow-white small hands, she hurriedly waved. Thousands of silver silk threads flew in the air, weaving into her holy and inviolable White Lotus vestment. However, White Lotus forgot to weave her sister's vestment. Red Lotus was still silently floating beside her sister, nude like a newborn baby, not knowing that her wonderful body had been seen by Yunxi from top to bottom. After being awakened by White Lotus's kiss, Yunxi felt as if there was heat flowing through his entire body. It was absolutely not the heat from the hot spring. Prince, sister. White Lotus covered her small lips with surprise and happiness on her face, then realized that her sister was still naked. She hurriedly helped her sister put on her Red Lotus vestment. You saw it. You saw it. White Lotus gazed at Yunxi with a crying-like pitiful look. She had no more words. In fact, I came here first. Yunxi guiltily raised up his hands. He wasn't a pervert who would peep on girls bathing. I know, Prince. White Lotus shyly pinched her fingers, not daring to look at Yunxi's face. Just now, she gathered all her nerve to kiss her prince. She didn't expect that the sleeping prince woke up due that, just like the fairy tales said. It must be decreed by fate. In her dream, the prince's kiss woke her up. However, in the real world, her kiss woke up the prince. Right now, what should her expression be? In fairy tales, after being awakened by the prince's kiss, the princess would fall in love with the prince. In the real world, after awakened by her kiss, would it be the same for the prince? Too much anxiety made her heart almost jump out from her chest. Was this the so-called love? Shyness, anxiety, excitement, and thrill. Various emotions mixed together, her head almost broke. She could even measure the orbit of stars, but couldn't even find a date or formula to deduce her current mood. What should she do? What expression should she show? Now, her expression must be very, very ugly. Sorry, I'm not a prince. Yunxi sighed and shook his head. He felt lucky that it was the younger sister of the twins that found him. If the terrible elder sister found him, Yunshi slightly imagined the scene and couldn't stop himself from trembling. The elder sister Red Lotus hated love and didn't mind anything. If she were to find him, the turtle. After mincing the turtle, would she steam, braise, or stew him? No, you're my prince. White Lotus raised up her head as persistent lights shined inside of her eyes. You don't know this, but I have seen you in my dream before. It was you, kissing us to awake us from the infinite darkness. Even though I know nothing of true love, I know it's our fate. You're the prince of my sister and me. Yunshi dumbly looked at the White Lotus saint, who was so innocent to believe that the dream meant destiny. He couldn't say the truth. He couldn't force it out of his mouth. The dream was the trial the stars arranged for him. You, the green hippo, and his childhood sweetheart Hua Hua were involved in his dream by the stars. How was it possible to tell her this truth? Should he tell her, the young sister of the twin witches, one of the apostles' candidate, that he was the star child who was wanted by the four overlords? Even if he wanted to die, it wasn't an acceptable choice. So, he couldn't explain, couldn't say, that the girl's dream of a lover was just a byproduct of a trial. The great stars, why? I'm just an ordinary person. It's true. Look, I live here, a small town. I'm a third-rank baker and first-rank swordsman. You must be mistaken. I'm not your prince. Now, Yunshi had to firmly deny her words. Ah, you live in this small town. I knew it was fate. White Lotus's eyes sparkled as if there were stars shining in them. They must be the lovely stars named Love. Chapter 34. Confession. This time, he could never wash himself clean. Looking at White Lotus's persistent eyes, Yunshi found that she was serious. She really thought that he was her dreamed prince. The power of the stars was too fantastic. They could actually draw unrelated people in their trial and cause this misunderstanding. However, he absolutely couldn't tell her the existence of the stars. Prince, what's your name? Nice to meet you. I'm a saint from the sharp-end area of the White Lotus Sword Domain, the titled Holy Virgin of the White Lotus Sword Domain. Sister and I are a pair of doomed twins. I'm White Lotus, my sister is Red Lotus. White Lotus politely greeted Yunshi. Her etiquette was so genteel, it's hard to imagine that she was a girl who could wake Yunshi up with such a fierce kiss. Yunshi. Yun means cloud and she meaning silent. Yunshi didn't know what to do in the face of White Lotus's good manners. She was a holy virgin of the White Lotus Sword Domain and was one of the twin Saintess, a real hero-ranked female warrior. Moreover, she had another hidden identity. She was an apostle candidate of an overlord, his ex-girlfriend. According to Maya's explanation, not everyone was entitled to be an apostle alternate of his ex-girlfriends. Talent, strength, potential, and even beauty were all there. If you were at the 7th rank, but ugly, you still wouldn't qualify to be their candidate. Anyone who could become an apostle of the four overlords was obviously a special person, a genius above geniuses, a special presence who was far stronger than any person at the same rank. Now, as a dangerous presence to Yunshi, the unknown apostle who was searching for him in the Sky Sword God's domain was an apostle of the 7th rank. According to Maya's judgment, as the weakest among all the apostles, she should have obtained her position not long ago. Well, less powerful when compared to some more old and stronger apostles. At any rate, a 7th rank was a horrible presence. It wouldn't be difficult for them to destroy the entire White Lotus Sword Domain. Even if all the 1st rank like Yunshi together reached 1 billion or tens of billions, in the face of a 7th rank, they were nothing, but just a number. The presence of a 7th rank had already reached the level of a master in the starry sky. If it was a small realm, it wouldn't even survive a full attack of someone of this rank. For the small town, a 3rd rank girl like Hua Hua was already the strongest person. As for the twin witches who were at the hero rank, they were legendary people. Now, one of them, White Lotus, was smiling sweetly and shyly in front of him. Her big black eyes were filled with love. In the end, what went wrong? Yunshi, what a nice name. In the end, my prince is beside me, at the place I'm supposed to be at. Ah, what a fantastic destiny. Thank fate, it guided me to meet with you. So, when can we talk about our wedding? White Lotus looked at Yoon-shi in ecstasy. No, it wasn't fate. It was the star's fault. Yoon-shi wanted to tell her the truth, but he forced himself to stop. Weird. It was too weird. He had never met such a girl like White Lotus. She was so innocent, enthusiastic, and pure, as if she was a princess that came out from a fairy tale. It seemed that all the darkness and dirty stuff in the world didn't exist in her eyes. She was like the most beautiful flower that bloomed in a greenhouse, snow white and spotless. How did such a girl grow up? Didn't she know that the world had a lot of bad, dirty, and dark stuff? It was just a kiss in the dream. She'd thought that he was her dreamed prince. She even started to design their wedding. The process was too fast. Cough. Your Honorable Holy Virgin, please stop mocking me. I'm not a guy who deserves your love. Yoon-shi said the truth seriously and nervously. Why? White Lotus looked at Yoon-shi with a puzzled and doubtful look. Because I'm just a baker, and you're a holy virgin of the White Lotus sword domain. Yoon-shi tried to point out the differences between their identities by using a simple method. Anything wrong? White Lotus cocked her face with an expression of I don't know what you are talking about. It means that the gap between our identities is too wide. We can't live together. Yoon-shi looked at the innocent White Lotus, trying to weep. What was she taught? Wasn't she taken care of too well? What's the matter? I like Prince, and Prince just needs to marry me. White Lotus didn't understand because she never needed to understand these kinds of things before. Since her childhood, she could almost get everything she wanted. Her sister and she were born as the best witches in the White Lotus sword domain. From her childhood, she didn't need to worry about food or clothes and everyone took good care of her. Her fate made her focus on reading books, deduce, and to be her sister's supplementary. She was already the perfect White Lotus Holy Virgin in other people's eyes. She didn't understand because her life was so perfect. Under her sister Red Lotus's protection, she grew up innocent and pure. She believed the fantastic fairy tale stories and dreamed of a dreamy love in reality. Due to her sister Red Lotus, no man dared to reach their hands toward the twin witches. Because her sister Red Lotus had a slight case of androphobia, she never allowed others to get close to them casually. Until that day. Her sister and she had the same dream. It was a fantastic dream, just like her favorite fairy tale story said. The prince came from a faraway kingdom, broke through brambles and thorns to find the princess who was sleeping in the dark forest, and woke her up with a kiss. In the dream, her sister and her were awake the whole time. She even vaguely felt that the prince tore the brambles away from them and finally met with her. The kiss was the first kiss for White Lotus and Red Lotus both. Love at first sight, it must be like that. When she opened her eyes, for the first time she stayed in the same body with her sister, she saw her prince. At that time, she'd understood that this was the so-called destiny. She finally encountered her prince, as dramatic as the fairy tale stories. Prince. Her prince. Identity, race, circumstances of birth, and strength aren't problems. I believe that we can overcome all difficulties to stay together. My prince, trust me, my heart will link up together with yours forever. No matter whoever comes to stand in our way, my heart will never change. Even if that means that I have to fight against the whole world. I love you. Please marry me, Prince. Oh, that was not the problem. Yoon-shi wanted to cry. You are an apostle candidate. You are my enemy, your Honorable White Lotus Holy Virgin. Chapter 35. Love letters. You wanted to marry me just because of a kiss. Your Honorable White Lotus Holy Virgin, how pure and naive you are. Please don't confuse fairy tale stories with reality. Let's suppose that you were the pure, innocent, and beautiful princess in the fairy tale story. However, I wasn't the prince who rode on a white horse to greet you. You and I were natural enemies. I can't accept your love. At any rate, Yoon-shi had to refuse the exalted White Lotus Holy Virgin's love. Even though he felt a little regret in his heart, but as a boy who was born in a small town, Yoon-shi knew that it was impossible to accept White Lotus's love. For them, the gap between their identities and strengths made it impossible to go on. In Yoon-shi's dream about his future, Maybe he would marry one of those girls in his town. He even slightly imagined the possibility of marrying Hua Hua. However, a female like White Lotus wasn't within his choice. Illusion should have its limits. Moreover, the pair of twin witches were two terrible presences. Like his natural enemies. You can't. Why? White Lotus seemed very shocked. Her innocent eyes almost welled up in tears. No means no. We are two different people. Besides, today I just meet you for the first time. If before he awakened his blood as the star child, if such a beautiful, cute, and pure girl said that she liked him, maybe he couldn't wait to accept her. Ah, but, you're my prince. White Lotus's eyes were filled with love. It seemed that even if Yunshi refused her, she had no intention to give up. Tell me, prince. What should I do to stay with you? No matter what I have to do, I will try my best. Except you, no one can obtain my love. Pressure. It was a great pressure. Yunshi's forehead began to drop with big beads of sweat. She was a perfect girlfriend. She only cared about him. She didn't even want any other male except him. She was like the most tender and beautiful flower in the greenhouse. Damn it. How nice would it be if she wasn't the White Lotus Holy Virgin and the terrible apostle alternate, but an ordinary girl in the town. It wasn't easy to meet such a girl who would show her true heart to him, but she was his natural enemy. Stars, are you mocking me? Then, let's first be friends, okay? It was just a plot to gain more time because there was no other way. No matter if it was Hua Hua or White Lotus, soon after they would leave this small town. By that time, the problem would be solved naturally. It's too weird to begin with a wedding. You're still young, you need time to teach you what true love is. After wiping the sweat away from his forehead, Yunshi tried to give her advice by using the best euphemistic method. Ah, so that, White Lotus understood. We need time to brew our love, and the marriage contract also needs time to be prepared. Prince, you considered our future well. So, give me a love token. You don't understand it at all, my honorable Holy Virgin. Yunshi looked at White Lotus, who smiled innocently, with an expression of why are you so naive? There was actually a girl who was like the princesses in the fairy tales. She smiled at him just because of his one kiss. She didn't mind the identity and strength of the person she loved, but reached her hand to him without hesitation. Compared to her innocence, Yunshi felt like he was a mortal who had sank into the dirty world. How could he deserve such a fairy-tale princess? Gift. Yunshi looked around, but unfortunately, he came here to take a bath. He didn't bring anything that could be used as a gift to the girl. Luckily, it was a hot springs area. Yunshi remembered that there was a speciality here. It was the associated product of the volcano, and many people came to pick some to make ornaments. Yunshi saw one. He took several steps forward, put his hand into one of the stone wall's corner, and drew out a fiery red stone. Yunshi slightly pinched, then found a irregularly shaped Micalex. It was a very common mineral in the mountain areas, especially at a hot spring. You could find them anywhere on the cliff. In this hot springs area, there was a kind of beautiful Micalex. Yunshi found them by accident in his childhood while playing here with Hua Hua. Unlike most of Micalexes that looked green, white, or red, the Micalexes in this hot spring had a rare golden red color. It was a beautiful color, just like the setting sun ensanguined behind the clouds. I hope you are worth of my choice. After carefully wiping off the stone chips from the surface of the Micalex, bit by bit, Yunshi predictably saw the beautiful golden red color. He was so poor that he could only present White Lotus such a crummy gift. As the future master of the White Lotus Sword domain and the highest witch, White Lotus probably wouldn't take a fancy in this kind of common rough stone. Gold, treasure, pearls, or corals were nothing to her. She was like a beautiful princess in the fairy tale story, naturally having everything. As an ordinary person, the semi-transparent golden red Micalex was the only gift he could find here for her. I can only find this. Yunshi looked at the irregular-shaped stone in his hand and felt embarrassed because it was just a rough stone, good for nothing except for its good-looking color. What a beautiful gem! White Lotus's eyes sparkled, behaving like she was a little girl who had just first tasted the sweetness of candy. But It's just a common Micalex. Yunshi looked at the delighted white lotus in surprise. As the white lotus Holy Virgin, you should have seen countless more valuable and beautiful gems, right? Even if you wanted to build a gem palace, it wouldn't be any more difficult than overturning your palm, right? I know it's a Micalex. But it's your love token, the proof of our love. White Lotus blissfully took the golden-red Micalex from Yunshi's hand, though it hadn't been sanded yet and looked rough. Today, this Micalex is just a common stone in the eyes of other people. But from now on, it's the first gift my lover gave me. In the future, it will be the gift my husband first presented to me, and gradually will become a priceless and irreplaceable treasure in my life. I don't mind other people's ideas, but for me, it's the most beautiful and glitzy gem from my prince. I witness it here. Your present is the most valuable gift to me, to complete our eternal contract. Maybe I indeed don't know what true love is, but I swear to this gem. I will love you forever. Chapter 36. Moon and Star Ring. I should go. The longer Yunshi stayed with White Lotus, the dirtier he felt. It was like writing messy and ugly letters on a pure white paper. The gap between their worlds was too wide. Maybe a prince and princess would have a perfect end. But this princess and himself? Was it a joke? Besides, they were natural enemies. Oh right, Maya. Finally, Yunshi remembered that his star fairy was still looking at them curiously. My fairy, why are you looking worried about nothing right now? Ah, is this little golden dog your pet? White Lotus looked at Mer jumping into Yunshi's arms in surprise. Ien, she is my pet. Yunshi hugged Maya, he didn't know why, but she was excited and suddenly turned his face red. He remembered the scene he saw just now through Maya's eyes, and the soft, sweet feeling he felt through Maya's body. No matter if it was the elder sister or the young sister. Woo-hoo, it wasn't his fault, it wasn't his fault. Sure enough, we can understand each other. This is an arrangement of fate. White Lotus smiled and waved her hand to Maya. She looked very happy. They could meet each other under the starry sky, at this time in the world where there was only the two of them. The god of fate, thank you for presenting to me the best prince in the world. No, in fact, that's, for White Lotus, it was her luck. But for Yunshi, it was definitely bad luck. He was just a first-rank swordsman now, but the apostle candidate of his ex-girlfriend had found him. Was he cursed by the god of fate? Yes, since she is one of your ex-girlfriends, then, goodbye. Yunshi thought that if he stayed here any longer, he would have a heart attack. We will see each other soon after, my prince. White Lotus looked at Yunshi leaving with Maya, smiling sweetly. In her palm, the golden-red gem Yunshi presented to her was shining extraordinarily bright. It was due to the blessing White Lotus casted on the gem. At midnight, inside the foggy hot spring, Red Lotus opened her eyes and stretched herself comfortably. She felt that she was in her best state. Inside of her body, her spirit chi quickly flowed like a waterfall. Even the essence of the sun and moon also responded to her twin witch blood, dropping from the sky incessantly. Peace of mind. The world was reflected in Red Lotus' heart. She could even clearly hear a flapping sound from several miles away. It was pretty weird. Wasn't her state too good? In Red Lotus's memory, she had only temporarily reached this kind of realm once. That happened when she and her sister broke together the wailing barrier of mortals and reached the hero rank. Enlightenment, God's thinking, or unity between heaven and man. Different gods' domains had different words to describe it, but they all meant the state of forgetting oneself. Red Lotus didn't enter that realm after that. Red Lotus leaned over her body and saw that her sister had an expression she had never seen before. There was an irregular-shaped golden-red mineral in her hands, which she had focused her cultivation power into. What was she doing? Red Lotus mainly practiced sword skills and unique skills like Void Mudra, so she didn't understand what White Lotus was doing. Though she didn't understand it, but from White Lotus's eyes, she could see that she had forgotten everything and sank into the god's thinking realm. She was trying her best to cast a special magic. Together with the moonlight and starlight dropping down, it slowly crushed and eliminated all impurities from the golden-red mineral, and only left behind the most beautiful and pure part. At first, the mineral was still a little rough and had some debris on its edges. However, after White Lotus refined it, it shined bright and beautifully. Hiss! Under Red Lotus's surprised eyes, White Lotus bit the tip of her finger and dropped blood beads on it one by one. The contract of blood. Red Lotus didn't believe what she saw. It was a forbidden magic, and normally people only used it when they were making a supreme spirit weapon or artifact. Once one person's blood was linked to other stuff, it wouldn't be an easy thing to discharge it. One person could only link a certain number of blood contracts, and once the stuff he used to make the contract was destroyed, the person would suffer a heavy damage. As the Red Lotus Holy Virgin, she had only one blood-contracted weapon now. That was her inherited sword, the Red Lotus Holy Sword. As for White Lotus, there was also an artifact waiting for her blood contract. But because she wasn't old enough, the ceremony was still being prepared. Why? Was this golden red mineral a special treasure? Why did White Lotus use her precious blood contract? You're my son. I'm willing to be the moon and the star, rotating around you. The sun, the star, and the moon will never be apart from each other. I name you as Moon and Star Ring. Red Lotus looked as White Lotus cast an occult art, which she didn't understand at all, to soak her essence and blood into the gem, which already turned into a beautiful golden red rhombic jewel. The blood of White Lotus was the yin part of the twin witches. It had a special power. She paid far more attention to the refined gem than her sister Red Lotus's imagination. Now, the occult art White Lotus cast was a mystic spell she found from an ancient book by using her incredible deducing and decoding abilities. If a girl of the pair of lovers wanted to prove her love, she could mold an artifact by using this occult art to mix her blood with her lover's love token. This occult art could refine common stuff into an artifact, which was able to link her soul and make it nearly immortal. However, in order to do it, it needed the girl's side to pay a heavy price. It was an occult art that only the imperial family members of the Eastern God's domain were qualified to use. The last step of the occult art was to give the refined artifact its true name. The Moon and Star Ring. This was the name White Lotus gave to the love token of Yunxi and her. Once she made it, it would become her own treasure and no one could rob it. Yunxi didn't expect how serious the innocent White Lotus Holy Virgin would take her first love. She didn't even hesitate to use the occult art, which would hurt her essence and blood, to make a common Micalex a unique artifact. Now, no one would think that the rhombic golden red gem was a Micalex. A golden red light point shone in the core of the gem, with stars rotating around it one after another. Another silver moon essence dropped and stayed around the golden red light points. You're the sun, I'm the star, and sister is the moon. Looking at the moon and star ring, White Lotus smiled sweetly. Tonight, the world was so fantastic for the girl in love. Chapter 37, Regression. White Lotus, what's happened? After White Lotus finished casting her secret spell, Red Lotus asked her sister. She didn't know what put her sister in such a good mood. Something must have happened. As the elder sister of the twins, Red Lotus never saw her sister so excited. Her sweet smile, focused eyes, and the golden red gem in her hands, everything told her that something had happened. Hey, I met with my prince. White Lotus had no secrecy awareness. Her sister took good care of her, which caused her have no idea about what was lie. Pure love and a pure heart, her first love was forever to her. White Lotus was a single-minded princess. Prince. You had the dream again. Red Lotus couldn't help but laugh. The prince was just a virtual character, but for her, he was simply a nightmare. Oh, I shouldn't let my sister read too many fairy tale books from the Western God's domain, thought Red Lotus. She had a far too irrational dream about love. Red Lotus knew if they didn't have the strength as hero-ranked warriors, plus them being twin witches, there would be far more dirty eyes peeping at them. Fortunately, she had enough power to protect her sister. She didn't even let her sister find these dirty people in the shadows, and had solved most of them in secret. She never allowed any dirty man to get close to her sister. It would be fine to let White Lotus live like a princess from those fairy tale stories, just like now. Ha ha, She remembered that her sister still thought that little children were delivered to their parents by immortal cranes. It wasn't a dream. This is a love token from my prince. White Lotus proudly held up the star and moon ring. It was limited to her power. Though it was named the Star and Moon Ring, it was just the first step in making an artifact, which meant that she just made the outline of its core. In Eastern God's domain, the forging method of making an artifact of royal love token needed 10 years, 100 years, or longer to make the love token an artifact. During this period, if the lovers betrayed each other, or just broke up, the forging method would mean nothing, as the person who made it on her own initiative, the bride's side, would suffer a great blow and never recover after that. In that case, without a huge courage, determination, and excellent talent, it wasn't possible to forge an artifact using this method. Gradually, the secret method nearly disappeared in the Eastern God's domain. According to the ancient books that White Lotus read, most of the girls who tried to use this forging method were the bride's side of a pair of childhood sweethearts, and the successfully finished artifacts would be counted on one person's hands. Childhood sweethearts would be the doomed losers, but she wouldn't, because she was the prince's princess. Is this the Micalex you dug out from that place? Through the outline of the mineral she saw, plus the trace on the rock not far away, Red Lotus immediately guessed the source of the so-called star and moon ring. Her sister was too frivolous. She dug out a beautiful mineral casually, felt it likable, and used one of the quotas of the blood contract. You should know, normally an ordinary person had only one quota that could be used to make a blood contract. When they chose the treasure to make the blood contract, they would choose them carefully and think again and again. However, they were different. Because they were cursed twin witches, they could make blood contract several times more than ordinary people. Even if White Lotus used one of the quotas, she had other quotas to make blood contract with other treasures. They had the qualification and talent to pamper themselves. Ha ha, sister, you found it. White Lotus looked pretty happy. Yes, this is the love token my prince dug out from that place and handed over to me personally. It's my treasure. Red Lotus covered her own forehead. Too bad, her sister slid into a reverie which was named love. How was it possible for that prince to walk into the real world from a dream? Even if the prince really existed, he would never get through the warning line she made. There was no creature in the hot spring beside themselves and the turtle. Where was the turtle? Had it left? All right, the prince is the best. We should go. After stretching her snow-white body and feeling the last moments of harmony of heaven and human, Red Lotus stood up. The transparent water drops slipped down from her jade-like beautiful breasts and dropped into the hot spring, rippling alluring ripples. I want to make the star and moon ring as quickly as possible. Let's go, sister. Looking at the golden-red gem shining in her hands, White Lotus's eyes burned. She wanted to make the gem her prince presented to her into the most beautiful ring in the world. Yawn. Holding Maya in his arms, Yunshi trembled after running back to the door of his home. He felt as if he ignored something. Little she, tell me the truth. Where were you last night? She was here. The girl he ignored. His childhood sweetheart, whose jealous radar never made a mistake and was 100% accurate, Huahua. In the darkness, Huahua put her right hand on the sword scabbard, staring at Yunshi as if she was a wife who found her husband backing from a secret date. Her sword hadn't been drawn out, but her killing intent was already rising in the air. Once she found the truth that Yunshi moved his love to any other girl, the only thing he would see was her lightning sword. I just went to the mountain to take a bath in the hot spring. Yunshi honestly said. Huahua stepped forward and smelled the odor on Yunshi's body. Fortunately, Yunshi kept soaking in the hot spring, so Huahua smelled nothing. In addition to Maya's special odor, he escaped from the probable disaster. It's weird. You body indeed have only Maya's odor, but why did I felt ill at ease during my practice and made mistakes several times? Ha, it must be your illusion. I was just going to the hot spring. Yes, he didn't lie. He just met his natural enemies when he was at the hot spring, and the sister, White Lotus, showed her love to him. Of course, he wouldn't say it out, even if she tore off his mouth. Oh right, Huahua, do you know what I saw? I saw a real big scene beside the river. Some real big shots came to our town. Yunshi immediately tried to change the topic. I know, they are the strongest people in White Lotus Sword Domain, the twin Saintesses. Hua's eyes turned serious. It seemed that she had heard of them before. Elder sister Red Lotus and young sister White Lotus. Even in the Western Gods Domain, you can hear their names. Yun 11, you should be careful. They're cursed twins, you should never get close to them. It says that they hate males. They never allow men to walk within 10 meters of them. Many people have died because they'd made this mistake. Yunshi sweated. Yunshi sweated like a trooper. Sweat streamed down Yunshi's face. 10 meters. Oh God, the distance between the White Lotus Holy Virgin and himself was almost a negative number. Chapter 38. Flocked little she, never, ever get close to the twins of fate. This was the first time Yunshi saw his childhood sweetheart look so serious. They're 1,000 times more dangerous than Millie, Phyllis, and Yi Li. If they take an interest in you, you would have a miserable end. Ah! Aren't you being too sensitive, Hua? And who did you think I am? Do I look like a guy who would get in trouble with the pair of twins? No, this must be the star's fault. Woo, I didn't expect that. They are here, so this small town will get in trouble soon after. Hua suspiciously looked at Yunshi, who was in a trance now, and felt that something was wrong. Yeah, they're really some big trouble. Yunshi smiled bitterly. He had no choice but to suffer in silence. He didn't dare to tell her the truth. If his childhood sweetheart, Hua, was a summer storm, then the pair of twin witches, White Lotus and Red Lotus, were a pair of unexpected calamity. The next day, Yunshi got up early and quickly understood what was the trouble Hua meant. The small town's narrow street was filled with strange creatures which were obviously from other towns. Rhinoceroses, red hares, yellow claws, flying lightning, and unicorns. Usually, you would never see so many cursorial mounts, but now, they were everywhere. There were even some rare flying mounts which you wouldn't see many times in such a common small town. The specialty of Eastern Gods Domains, the maned rock birds. The specialty of Western Gods Domains, the powerful and magnificent griffins. Yunshi even saw, in the air, a flying carriage which was pulled by 3 flying horses and shrouded by clouds and mist. Young boys wearing various well-crafted clothes were seemingly in high and vigorous spirits. They excitedly gathered together, talking with eloquence. Among them, many people were wearing white 2-leaves sword-shaped emblems, which meant that they were second-rank swordsmen, the best of the best. Yunshi even saw a few of them wearing 3-leaves sword-shaped emblems. It meant that they were standing at the top of mortals and known as matchless geniuses. Of course, these geniuses weren't the local people of the small town. Some of them were from nearby towns, and some of them were nobles or men of good families, riding on rare flying mounts and coming from thousands of miles away. The swordsmen who had 3-leaves emblems were certainly candidates who would join the Sword Palace. And the geniuses like Hua didn't even need to take the exam, they could join the Sword Palace directly. The young boys, girls, and their servants and relatives who came from faraway areas made the narrow road of the small town more crowded, and they were here for only one reason. The coming of the twin witches, the future masters of White Lotus Sword Domain, Red Lotus and White Lotus. If it was a common admission, it wouldn't draw so many people's attention. The only reason it aroused such a storm was the appearance of the twin witches. The clouds were rolling on with full force. Perhaps this was the best description of this scene. Dong, dong. At the entrance of Yunshi's bake shop, it was ringing with hasty knocking sounds. Yunshi went down the stairs and opened the door, seeing a crowd of travel-stained servants. Hey, young master, do you want to sell your house? I'm from Shiyuan town and the representative of Child Ling. I want to buy your house, 10 times the price. Wait, I'm from Donghe town. Child Xiao. I can pay 15 times the price. 30 times the price. We, Yunhe City, want your house. Yunshi looked at the servants gathering together in front of his shop's door and felt flabbergasted. Since when did the houses of this small town become so expensive? He looked carefully. It wasn't only his bake shop. There were also many servants gathering together in front of the other shops, nearly all the shops on the street. Sorry, but I won't sell my shop. Temporarily closed. Yunshi couldn't bear the noise and directly closed the door. After thinking for a while, he posted a paper on the door, which was written, "My shop will be temporarily closed, and it's not for sale. The twin witches are here." It means that the small town will get in trouble soon after. Yunshi finally understood the words his childhood sweetheart told him. The future masters of White Lotus Sword Domain, the twin witches, were more valued than his imagination. White Lotus was a princess, but she had a higher status than real princesses. They were cursed and doomed twins, who became unmatched hero-ranked sword maidens at the age of 14. It was like Hua Hua had said. As a man who was loved and was confessed her love to by the White Lotus Holy Virgin, he was in a big trouble. Outside the small town, at the riverside camp, the twin witches were there. Rarer flying mounts were flying from faraway places and landing beside the river. They were placed in the open space. More young talents who had family backgrounds and strength were led by their elder family members, waiting to be summoned by the legendary twin witches. What a bother. Fortunately, White Lotus had gone to bed. Otherwise, their dirty eyes would make her have a nightmare. Sitting on the holy chair, as White Lotus impatiently received one after another so-called young talents, she grumbled to her maidservant. "Qiu Lan, why should I waste my life on this kind of meaningless things? Lady Red Lotus, please lower your voice. The #1 heir of Yun He City is waiting for you." The beautiful maidservant, who was named Qiu Lan, smiled and covered her small mouth. 20 meters away from the holy chair, Child Yun He half kneeled on the ground and heard a different voice. "Not bad. I hope you can keep trying to take part in the exam." "Yes." After obtaining Red Lotus's recognition, Child Yun He vigorously patted his chest and looked pretty excited. This was a recognition from one of the twin witches, which was equal to the recognition of the Sky Sword God's domain itself. Why didn't he hesitate to catch a chill in the night, but still rushed to here by riding on his family's flying horse? Undoubtedly, it was for the sake of this opportunity. There were also exams of the Sword Palace in other places, but these exams were presided by common instructors. How could they deserve to be compared with the exam which was presided over by the twin saintesses? Taking part in the exams which were presided over by the twin witches was equal to getting the opportunity to have a direct link with the future masters of White Lotus Sword Domain. He wasn't the only one who thought so. He believed that every man of every good family who took the exam was thinking so. As the old saying went, the near water balcony gets a month first. He could come so fast because the remote small town wasn't too far away from Yun He City. After he heard the news that they were here, he was the first man of a top-level family to arrive here. Conceivably, after this news spread around, the next several days, more and more young geniuses whose age was between 16 and 18 would use various methods to come here. This small town was doomed to be the center of attention. The twin witches were such two mystic and special presences. They were worth all the men of good families in White Lotus Sword Domain paying attention to them. Their every movement would affect the whole White Lotus Sword Domain situation. Due to their coming, even such a border small town, which was carelessly marked on the map, became the focus of every noble family's eyes. Chapter 39, Limit Practice 2 days. Within just 2 days, the peaceful small town had completely changed in appearance. One after another, temporary bamboo houses raised straight from the ground, with writings of each aristocratic family's name on each of them. Geniuses came from all directions. They gave up their opportunity to take the exam in their hometowns, but took part in the exam of the Sword Palace in this small town. For a time, clouds gathered, driven by the wind. The history of the small town opened onto a new page. However, it had temporarily no relationship to Yunshi. After getting the premonition that some big trouble would happen in the small town, he had no hesitation in directly picking up camping tools and food, hiding with Maya in a secret location of the hill. Here was also a location he had found once when he was playing games with his childhood sweetheart. It was a hiding spot in the small secret valley. In the end of the valley, there was a big beautiful tree. On the tree, there was a clumsy, but cute umbrella-shaped mark. On one side, it was Yunxi's name, and on another side, it was Huahua's name. Yunxi and Huahua will stay together forever. Looking at the handwriting he wrote when he and Huahua both were still young, Yunxi wasn't able to stifle a laugh. At that time, Huahua and he were still naive. They never realized how wide was the gap between their identities. Children's feelings were always so pure and innocent. Okay, let me start limit practice from now on. After putting up the tent under the tree, Yunxi drew out his long sword, which he specially bought from the blacksmith shop in the town. By imitating the sword Huahua used, this sword was as much as possible like the elite-level longsword of the White Lotus Sword Palace. However, it was just a good product sold in the blacksmith shop, after all. It wasn't possible for it to be as sharp as Huahua's sword. However, it didn't matter. Because Yunxi wasn't going to use the sword to fight. He wanted to train in the limit practice that he learned from Huahua's seed. Push-ups for 1,000 times, sit-ups for 1,000 times, squat for 1,000 times, run 100 miles, and brandish his sword for 10,000 times. Based on this, it was a circle. Over and over. It was totally a challenge to the limit of the human body. You could even say that the human physique itself had made it clear that it was an impossible practice. It was said that long ago, a man kept practicing himself like this for 3 years and became an invincible warrior. However, as the price, he became a baldy. The baldy Saitama, from One Punch Man. Okay, Yunxi didn't think that he could overdraw his life to keep practicing this limit practice for 3 years. The man who could do it must have a monster-like physique. He was just a first-ranked swordsman. Even the 3 basic trainings were impossible for him. The mortal rank swordsmen were just flesh and blood, even if they had all sorts of magic-like methods just like hero rank warriors. Now, Yunxi had only come into contact with 2 hero rank warriors. However, the twin witches weren't at the same level as ordinary hero rank warriors. Because Yunxi chose the wrong reference, he had a great misunderstanding about the gap between mortals and hero rank warriors, and had an illusion that his strength was extremely insignificant. That was the reason why he was here, preparing to challenge the limit practice. Which in his memory, Huahua didn't even finish when she was still at the first rank. The first is push-ups for 1,000 times. Sticking the long sword in front of himself, and standing under the tree he made the promise with Huahua, Yunxi started to challenge the inhuman limit practice. 1, 2, 3, 4, relying on his first-rank limit of physical fitness after absorbing the green hippo's soul, Yunxi kept to it, doing 500 push-ups. Then, he couldn't hold up and laid on the ground. Sure enough, my first-rank body can't handle this. Yunxi's eyes were covered by his own sweat. It was his strong will that supported him to hold on to his limit. And the fact also proved that as just a first-ranked swordsman, no matter how strong-willed he was and how perfect he could save his physical strength, it was impossible to finish 1,000 push-ups. It wasn't like common push-ups. No matter the posture, height, or the position to support the body, it had an extremely high demand on all aspects. Ordinary people would go into convulsions, toppling down to the ground before they did 100 push-ups. Release the seed's power. At the beginning, when Yunxi just obtained the green hippo's blood seed, he had a guess. And now it was the time to verify it. He wasn't going to release all the blood power from the seed just like what he did in the battle, but slowly released out the blood power from the seed, using it to help his practice. With the help of the tremendous blood power of the green hippo's seed, he could do what he wasn't able to do in the past, and successfully finished the seemingly impossible limit practice. A little warmness appeared inside Yunxi's body, and then spread to his 4 limbs. Yes, this was the feeling. Like this, he could go beyond the limit of his mortal body. It was deserving to be the fierce green hippo's seed. Yunxi even felt a little pity. Ashen, do you have more hippos? By using the green hippo's blood seed, Yunxi broke through his body limit. He did 1,000 push-ups, 1,000 sit-ups, 1,000 squats, and run for 100 kilometers. With the flashing light of his sword, he started to practice the last part, and it was also the part that needed the most attention, brandishing his sword 10,000 times. Keeping the speed steady, brandishing his sword stably and powerfully. Making sure that it wasn't beyond his limit. This was the most important and core part. He had to do this after he finished the previous part of the limit practice. As he kept his eyes and heart focused on the same line, Yunshi stood under the big tree, brandishing his sword methodically and focusedly. Sweat continuously flowed down from his forehead, but it couldn't affect his concentration. Again, Huahua's sword seed grew slowly. In this nameless small valley, Yunshi took the first and most important step in his life. Done. In the encampment of the twin witches, White Lotus happily lifted up the star and moon ring. Around her, there were the craftsmen who were hurriedly called from the White Lotus Sword Palace. They looked at the artifact's shining golden red light of sun, silvery white light of full moon, and the bright light of stars in White Lotus's hands, showing a relieved expression. After working hard for 3 days and nights, she finally made the perfect fruit. From now on, the White Lotus Sword Palace had another legendary artifact. The Star and Moon Ring, the secret artifact which was forged by the White Lotus Holy Virgin personally. Look. Its golden red halo was so bright and as holy as the sun. It's beautiful. Red Lotus looked at the finished artifact, the Star and Moon Ring, in surprise. If she didn't know its origin, she wouldn't believe that it was made of a Micalex. Because this is the miracle of love. White Lotus put the Star and Moon Ring on her finger and smiled sweetly. Here's my son. Chapter 40. Exit 9996. 9997. 9998. 9999. 10,000. After brandishing his sword 10,000 times, Yunshi finished his first round of limit training. He felt dizzy and empty of all his strength, collapsing under the big tree. So tired, so painful, so sad. Was this the feeling of continuously going over his own limit? No wonder even Huahua couldn't finish this challenge when she was at the first rank. Vaguely, Yunshi felt that his consciousness was fading, and his body twitched with pain. His muscle, bones, and nerves all screamed badly, suing his grievous limitation training. The beat of his heart became fast, then slow. Its rhythm was completely messed up. Woo-woo. When Yunshi felt that he was dying, he heard a familiar voice. Opening his eyes, Yunshi saw that his star fairy was biting a big piece of rolled leaf and running to him. Swish. Cold water drops dropped on Yunshi's exhausted body, bringing him a little vitality. Maya's healing power had been already exhausted when Yun 11 brandished his sword 3,000 times. She was so tiny. The only thing she could do for Yunshi was use these kinds of leaves to bring cold and clear water from the stream outside of the valley, to cool down Yunshi's overheated body. You are such a good girl. Yunshi smiled as he looked at Maya's expression of worry. As he looked at Maya, he felt that he could still keep on training. Several days passed very quickly. Soon after, it was the day before the exam of the Sword Palace. From all corners of the White Lotus Sword Domain, the geniuses and people of good families, as many as there were qualified to take the exam, all came to this small town which was, on the map, an inconspicuous area of the sword handle. Not only so, there were also many geniuses from other sword domains. Among all of them, 3 of them were above all the geniuses as the 3 strongest people accepted by everyone at the Sword Palace exams. Child Yun-hee, he was the first in succession to the famous Yun-hee city in the White Lotus Sword Domain. He was 18 years old, a 3rd-ranked swordsman, the master of the famous twin swords Crane Wings. He was handsome, generous, and graceful, known as the famous sword genius within 10,000 kilometers. When he was 16 years old, as a 2nd-ranked swordsman, he was already able to join the Sword Palace, but he didn't. Due to some unknown reason, he waited till he became a 3rd-ranked swordsman. And now, he was taking part in the exam of the Sword Palace. Child Sign Yan, he was from the middle part of White Lotus Sword Domain, Sinian City. He was a genius with mixed blood from the Western Gods Domain. He used a 2-handed broadsword, which was rare in the Sky Sword Gods Domain. He was a 3rd-ranked swordsman, too. Unlike traditional swordmen in Sky Sword Gods Domain, his career was a heavy swordsman. He was over 2 meters tall, strong and powerful, and looked pretty exotic. The last genius came to the small town later. It was said that he was the strongest genius who came from a high-level sword domain of the Sky Sword God's domain. He was Child San Quan, a real great genius. He was a swordsman, but also a Taoist priest and an alchemist. In the meanwhile, he frighteningly practiced the 3 to the 3rd rank at the same time. His strength already earned him a pre-approved quote of White Lotus Sword Palace. However, he refused the pre-approved quote to take the exam personally. Yun He, San Quan, Sai Nyan. They appeared as 3 geniuses who had inherited the name of their cities. Many people exclaimed that they would create a new history for the exam of the White Lotus Sword Palace. Hence, they were also regarded as 3 hot candidates of the exam, and also had the same likes and dislikes. So, they built a small group and took the strongest one, Child San Quan, as their leader. Nearly all the people here naturally thought that the first 3 places of the exam of the Sword Palace had been decided before it started. For the 3 geniuses, they had reached the 3rd rank at the age of 18, and they were the strongest ones amongst them. Child San Quan had reached the 3rd rank in 3 different careers. The only question was who was the number 1, 2, and 3 among the 3 geniuses. If judging from their personal strengths, obviously as a genius who came from a high-level sword domain, Child San Quan was the number 1. However, Child Yun He had his heirloom, the famous twin swords, crane wings. And Child Sai Nyan was born with superhuman strength and had the strongest attack amongst the 3. In the end, among the 3 geniuses, who would be the number 1 in the exam which was conducted by the twin witches? These people came from everywhere in the White Lotus Sword domain, and had made various bets. Everyone was expecting the start of this unusual exam of the Sword Palace. No one noticed that from the mountains, a ragged boy with clear eyes was walking out from the valley. In the bright sun, the boy's body looked more firm and concentrated compared to when he first went into the valley. Especially his big eyes. Inside his black pupils, you could see a vague sword spirit flying in them. It meant that he had engraved sword skills into his blood and touched the edge of the realm of psychic communion. Starting from the beginning of the Stars trial, he stumbled blindly to find the rules, to his 120 deathful battles with the green hippo. Till he killed the green hippo in the real world. In just 2 days, the boy had experienced too much and obtained power which was already beyond his imagination. After practicing for several days and nights in the valley, the boy continuously overdrew himself and used the seed of the green hippo to help train himself. Now, the boy finally cleared up what he had obtained. And then, he naturally reached the 2nd rank. The understandings and experiences of Hua Hua's seed brought him to a door of a new world. It helped him understand the world in the eyes of his childhood sweetheart. The seed of the green hippo and his experience of death 120 times helped him overcome his limits and obtain the perfect state of mind to stay calm even when he was facing death itself. The limit training came from Hua Hua's memories. It helped him unify his essence, energy, and spirit, reaching the limit which countless geniuses couldn't reach when they were still mortals, psychic communion. The boy who walked out of the valley, Yun Shi, indeed became stronger. Not only his body, but also his persistent heart. Overcoming his limit again and again brought him an incredible self-confidence. You could say that at the time he fought against the green hippo, he was still a newbie who just learned parts of Hua Hua's talent and still needed the help of the environment to win his battles. But now, he had already mastered the true key, and opened the realm of warriors. The door to a great future had been opened for him. Much, much later, when Yunshi recalled his naive period, he finally understood that, when he stayed in the valley to hone himself, what a great change the limit training brought him. However, at this moment, he still didn't know that his fate had been changed due to the twin witches. Chapter 41. The Trial Reopens Maya, Thank You. Holding his tiny star fairy in his arms, Yunshi quickly moved using the skill Quicksilver Motion and expressed his thanks to the cute and sensible star fairy. It was way too difficult to do the limit practice in the empty valley. Every time he finished one turn of the limit practice and fell to the ground under the big tree, Maya would lick his ears. Her tiny body went back and forth between the valley and the stream, bringing him life-saving water. Every time Yunshi felt that he couldn't keep on, that his soul and body both had reached the limit, It was Maya that made him summon up his last strength, forcing him to go on. If the green hippo's seed supported his body in finishing the grievous limit practice, then Maya was like a lighthouse in his heart, making him see hope when he was wandering in the sea of pain. Now, Yunshi was confident about the second star trial tonight. Yes, today was the 7th day after the first trial. The time Maya said that the second star trial was going to start. In the deep of night, Yunshi sat on the roof of his home, looking at the starry sky. Around him, the small town was so lively that it almost felt unfamiliar to Yunshi. One after another, bamboo houses occupied the place where families Yunshi knew should be. The bamboo houses were very tall, the taller one was even over 100 meters with huge banners hanging down from it. Wishing that child Yun-hee, Sain-yan, and San-kwan passed the trial of the Sword Palace. It wasn't the only banner like this. Even as Yun-shi headed back to town, he got to know the 3 hottest childs of the exam of the Sword Palace. Isn't that too exaggerated? These childs, looking at the small town that was decorated with lanterns and colored hangings and bursting with happiness, Yunshi had never seen his hometown so lively. In fact, you know nothing about power. Yunshi reached out his small hands, feeling the light of the stars emanating from the sky. Unlike the last time, this time he could clearly feel the coming of the power of the stars. Compared to the last trial, this time, the scale of this trial increased by 10 times. Did that mean the stars thought there were 10 times the amount of people that had the qualifications to enter the trial? If so, just let it start. Perhaps tonight would be very long. With this kind of anticipation, Yunshi went back to his small room, counting down to the time he had to enter the world of trial. 10, 9, 8, 7. Hey! Did I drink too much? Child Yun he was drinking with several noble friends, but he suddenly felt very sleepy. He couldn't keep himself awake and lied on the table. Let's drink to our heart's content tonight. Let's walk together to the west. The noble childs who were drinking together with Child Yun he were already drunk, and none of them found anything weird. They fell down one by one. At the same time, in another place of the small town, the other boys and girls who took part in the exam of the Sword Palace also felt very sleepy. Why am I so sleepy? That's strange. Child Sain-yan was practicing his sword skill in the yard he just bought. He yawned and put down his 2-handed heavy sword. The hexagrams are very auspicious and says that I should go to bed as quick as possible. Child San-kwan was divining his luck for tomorrow and got a good prediction. He closed his eyes with satisfaction, sinking into deep meditation. However, this time, he fell asleep unconsciously. In the soft light of the stars, one after another, geniuses who came from all directions of the White Lotus Sword domain fell asleep unconsciously. Half an hour later, Yunshi's childhood sweetheart, Hua Hua, also fell asleep. Finally, in the encampment beside the river, the twin witches stretched themselves together. It feels weird. I have a bad presentiment. Red Lotus rubbed her temples, trying to raise her spirit, but her eyes couldn't stop closing. Let's sleep, sleep, my sister. White Lotus was humming a soft and relaxing tune. Just like her sister, she also had an unknown presentiment. However, it was a very sweet presentiment. No, I can't sleep, damn it. Red Lotus's body shook for a couple of times, then finally laid down on the ground. Sister, let's have a good dream. White Lotus smiled sweetly, closing her eyes together with her sister. The second trial starts now. Final quest. The poor princess is locked up in an evil tower. Please defeat the evil stone soldier army and break into the tower to save the princess. Optional side quest. The brave girl is challenging the evil dragon. Go to become her partner and defeat the evil dragon. Armory opened. Gallery of spoils opened. Forging system opened. A series of notification tones rang in Yunshi's ears. It wasn't as simple as the newbie trial. This trial was more difficult, and it was the first time there was a side quest that could be chosen. There were also the new armory, gallery of spoils, and forging system added in the trial. Opening his eyes, Yunshi found that he was sitting beside a campfire in the sunset glow. As far as his eyes could see, there was a great tower sitting at the end of the coast. The dilapidated palaces were linked together by floating stone bridges, releasing an ancient aura of vicissitude. Obviously, The Great Tower was the location where the princess was imprisoned. Yunxi had even expected who the princess was. After all, in the small town, only she could be the most glorious and beautiful princess. Looking to the left, there was an active volcano emitting out red clouds to the sky. He could hear a dragon's roar coming from that place, and there were fierce griffins hovering above the volcano. That was the way leading to the hero. Since the heroine was so powerful that she was able to challenge the evil dragon, Yunxi practically knew who she was. Last time, it was a single game line of the Sleeping Beauty, but this time there were two choices: the game line of heroine and the game line of the princess in the Great Tower. The love system of the stars liked to make Yunxi face extra hard difficulties. Just like last time, the stars also gave Yunxi the map of the trial. Yunxi just took a glance, then the serried red points on the map scared him. Except for the green point of himself, the green point in the volcano zone, and the green point on the top of the Great Tower, they were all blood-red points. Ka-la, Ka-la, Ka-la. It seemed that Yunxi's coming activated the switch of this trial world. The stone soldiers in different palaces all opened their eyes one by one. Enemy. Invader. Find. Eliminate. Yunxi hadn't yet walked away from the campfire, but he already felt that he was involved in great danger. Chapter 42. Stone Statue Legion Ka-la, Ka-la, Ka-la. Unlike the newbie trial, Yunxi didn't have enough time to prepare for it. After the trial started, a crowd of stone soldiers rushed out from the palace. They didn't even give 10 seconds to prepare. Within such a little time, Yunxi had only roughly observed the location, the palace, the height of the volcano, and the distance between the final tower and himself. Last was to choose weapons. In the newbie trial, Yunxi could only choose the newbie iron sword. However, this time, he had other choices. The first option was an iron sword, which Yunxi was very familiar with. It was obviously the newbie iron sword which followed him while he was killed by the green hippo for 120 times, but was finally thrown away in front of the dark forest because he had to escape from Hua at that time. Not only this, he also obtained an armor. It was a pretty tattered cloth armor, but it was still better than nothing. The last one was a sizable, soft wooden shield. They were all the initial equipment Yunxi had found beside the campfire in this round of the star trial. However, before Yunxi decided which weapon was suitable for him, the crowd of stone soldiers had come to him. Kill, kill, kill. These stone soldiers looked human, but they treated Yunxi like their sworn enemy, rushing forward at him. Wait. The newbie trial left Yunxi a wrong impression that the campfire area was an absolutely safe area. Before he even picked up his sword, he had been chopped down by countless weapons, and then his whole body was trampled into minced meat. The second trial, his death count, 1. After killing Yunxi, the stone soldiers walked in a circle along the campfire, then returned to the palace with satisfaction. 10 seconds later, Yunxi revived at the original place. Ka-la, Ka-la, Ka-la. Just as the stone soldiers walked back into the first palace, they immediately behaved as if Yunxi stirred up their hornet's nest, rushing toward him again. This time, Yunxi learned his lesson. He put on the cloth armor and held the newbie iron sword in his hand. As for the shield, he hesitated for a while but did not pick it up. After all, Huahua's seed didn't teach him skills for using the shield. After the time of a few breaths, the stone soldiers had come for him again. Come on. Yunxi had prepared for a cruel star trial. He stepped forward, rushing towards the dozens of stone soldiers with great courage. One hit. By using the quicksilver motion and flying swallow sword he learned in the valley, Yunxi took the lead in killing one of the stone soldiers. At the next moment, dozens of weapons chopped at Yunxi's body. 3 seconds later, another pool of bloodstains appeared on the ground. 10 seconds later, Yunxi revived at the campfire again. He helplessly looked at the stone soldier army rushing at him from the distance again. Oh no, this wasn't what he expected. To fight one-on-one was completely unlike fighting against many. Even Hua hadn't had the opportunity to fight against over 30 enemies. Moreover, they were not some weaklings, but elite warriors. By his estimation, the The weakest one among them was at the top level of the first rank, and the strongest enemies were at the top level of the second rank. All of them had the strength to fight with Yunshi one-on-one, not to mention they were rushing forward at Yunshi trying to kill him together. When they gathered together, they were even more dangerous than the third-rank green hippo. At least, the green hippo's moves were full of flaws that could be caught by him. However, even if he could kill one of the stone soldiers who were transformed from the participants in the town, how was it possible for him to kill them all? This was the first time that Yunshi experienced the power of an army. No, are you kidding me? Yunshi revived again while holding the newbie iron sword in his hand. He looked at the palaces in the distance, counting the number of his enemies and showing a forlorn look on his face after that. How is it possible to kill them all? The difference between the newbie trial and the formal trial is too big. Once again, Yunshi felt how heavy and hot the star's love for him was. I won't give up. Even if you're the geniuses of the White Lotus Sword domain, I will go across your corpses to see my princess. Yunshi gnashed his teeth in anger. Relying on his iron-like will he practiced during the limit practice, his flying swallow sword and quicksilver motion, Yunshi took the initiative to rush toward the stone soldier army. The first attack of the flying swallow sword. Yunshi didn't save any of his strength. By relying on his speed, Yunshi took the advantage to kill one of the weaker stone soldiers first. A ball of green soul flew out from the stone soldier's corpse. It naturally flew into Yunshi's body and improved his physical strength a little. The second attack of the flying swallow sword. After measuring the angle, Yunshi brandished his sword. This time, he killed 3 stone soldiers together. However, his luck ran out. Before Yunshi used the last attack of the flying swallow sword, the assassin's sword, various weapons had smashed down from the sky aiming at him from all directions. Those childs of noble families, who were drawn into the trial by the stars and transformed into stone soldiers, weren't ordinary people. If they didn't have enough power, how would they dare to take the test of the Sword Palace, which was conducted by the twin witches? The stone soldiers who were killed by Yunshi were the weakest among all the participants. They were just 16 years old, but they were also at the top level of the first rank. Kai. Before Yunshi had the chance to feel his improved after his body absorbed the soul, he had been slashed through, torn apart, and cut up by weapon after weapon. Green soul light spots flew out from his body and flew back to the palace. Yunshi observed that these souls were returned back to the stone soldiers again. So that was what the rule was. After killing his enemies, he still needed to absorb their souls. And once he was killed, the souls would fly out from his body and return back to their original bodies again. This also meant that Yunshi couldn't improve himself by killing the weaker enemies again and again. That was reasonable. Equivalent exchange was the basic rule of the world. If he could improve himself by killing the soldiers again and again, the star's trial would be just a joke. So there was just one stupid, but simple method he could choose. This was also the road the star's trial pointed out for him. Becoming stronger bit by bit, activating his potential by wandering between life and death, and finally conquering the seemingly unconquerable road of Trier. There wasn't any shortcut. On the road to the great tower where the imprisoned princess was, he had to sprinkle countless blood. No matter what quest he chose, the road leading to the princess or the road leading to the heroine, he had to pay with the price of blood. Come on, let's start fighting. In the face of the aggressive stone soldier army, Yunshi yelled, "You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.